Part 334. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3345. If you can't even touch it, isn't it invincible? Attacks from domain lord level masters shouldn't have been so easy to dodge. Even if it is a clone of the Black God, it should be difficult to fight against it. But precisely because they didn't understand the power of subspace, they didn't lock on the subspace when they took action, allowing him to easily step into the subspace, and then move quickly to the side of this domain lord level master. Of course, even if the opponent has the ability to deal with subspace, Black God Jia Yan will not be afraid. He has the confidence to fight even those who have just entered the lower level of territory lord, let alone the ordinary territory lord level. Haha, it's not something, it's just someone I want to trade with you. If I give you another chance, are you willing to get some living planets? If not, we are willing. We are willing. Stop talking, thank you for taking a fancy to our Star Thieves group, we will go all out to find the star core for you. The umbrella monster was so horrified that he hurriedly told Jia Yan what he agreed with before he could say anything cruel. Now that he has confirmed the strength of this tiny creature, he shouldn't give in quickly. If you delay for 1 second, you may die. Actually, it's not that exaggerated. The Black God clone came here with an idea in mind. If the other party disagrees, the most he can do is destroy everyone present and throw them into the endless starry sky. Otherwise, his search for the Star Thief group to get the life planet will spread to the Yin-Ao forces. In the heirs, wouldn't the friendly relations between the two parties be affected? After all, the planets that the Star Thieves want to attack are all planets under the name of the Yin-Ao force. In short, Umbrella Creature and others are very sensible, so he will not pursue it. Very good, you know how to advance and retreat very well, so I'll leave it to you. As for the deposit, no, there's really no need. We believe in your credibility. Ha ha ha, it's been a long time since we've had such a generous guest. Naturally, it's impossible for us to collect your deposit. The umbrella creature was so good. The Black God clone originally wanted to show off its majesty and let the other party know its strength, but there was no excuse for this. He nodded and said, "Okay, I will come in a few days. You can prepare the star core as soon as possible. I hope you can see what I want when you come next time. By the way, your forces are already monitoring me. I hope you won't leave. It's very troublesome to find someone in this vast starry sky." Of course not, of course not, we understand credibility. The umbrella monster was on the verge of tears. Who would have thought that a little-known little life form coming to the door would actually be causing trouble? If I had known, he would not have contacted me then. Buzz. The subspace was roiling for a while, and the Black God clone entered it again. After threatening the two major Star Thief groups, he felt that time was almost up. So, he dived into the very deep level of the subspace, between the 10-degree shallow layer and the middle layer. He lay on the raised place in the center of the pendant, looked at the distorted and unchanging scenery of the subspace, and hurried on. The more you use it, the easier it becomes to use the pendant, and the speed also increases. So he rushed back to Yin-Ao City, the central city of Yin-Ao's power, 3 days before the 1-month deadline. Assassin Ambassador, you have been out on the road for a really long time. We almost worried about your safety and sent people out to look for you. Ha ha ha, there is a labor force. Sorry, I just wanted to see Sun Xi happy, so I stayed in the second city of the noble force for a while. Oh? Then do you have any insights into the second city of our power? When Jia Yan returned to Yin-Ao City, a high-ranking aristocratic official working with the outside world immediately came to visit, and started an open and covert fight with the Black God's clone. The other party wanted to determine what the Black God's clone, who had disappeared for nearly a month, went out to do. They were not really worried about the Black God's clone wandering around in their country. God knows if the other party was a spy or something, so they had already sent people to search for it. But this guy seemed to have evaporated, disappearing directly from the eyes of all the Yin-Ao forces. No matter how hard he searched, he couldn't be found. Now the person has returned intact, but it is not known whether he has obtained some core secrets of Yin-Ao's power or something. That's why a high-ranking official came to explore. The Black God Jia Yan was smart. He argued with the opponent for a moment, and insisted that he was just because he was too small. He happened to want to hide his actions, so he was not recognized by the various monitoring systems of the Yin-Ao forces. This makes sense. There has never been such a small citizen creature in the history of Yin-Ao forces. The smallest baby creature is dozens of meters tall. Which surveillance system would specifically target a small insect over 1 meter tall? So the other party accepted the Black God's clone's words with hesitation. Of course, more importantly, they didn't feel that the Black God clone had any confidential information. In places where confidential information exists, the equipment is still very tight. Not to mention that the clone is just a creature over 1 meter tall, even if it is only a few tenths of an inch, it may not be able to get in. Don't forget that this is an interstellar technological society. They just didn't mobilize large resources to investigate, otherwise they would definitely be able to intercept a large number of figures about the Black God's clone in the second city, but those figures were all left before he left and on the day he returned. But that would be time-consuming, labor-intensive, and even more expensive. With the current Yin-Ao forces in trouble both internally and externally, who would waste such huge manpower and material resources just because of the presence of such a diplomatic envoy? Okay, let's not talk about that. I don't know if the envoy is out this time. But he has a deeper understanding of our Yin-Ao power? The cooperation project we talked about before. Of course it can continue. Didn't we already have an agreement? Haha, that's so exciting. Cheers, Mr. Assassin. I wish our cooperation will last forever. Cheers. The two men, one large and one small, seemed to be toasting to an asteroid level as humans faced each other, setting the tone for the final negotiation. On the second day, the Galactic Chamber of Commerce envoys who came from afar announced that they would return to the inner world. After returning, they would sit in the Yin-Ao force for a long time until a new replacement came. The Yin-Ao forces expressed their sincere respect for the only ambassador in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who had met with them and set all the terms of cooperation, plus a lot of tests, and sent a farewell team that was even more luxurious than when they arrived. But this is not because the other party has lost its share. There is only one reason, and that is that they will get more things in return from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. In fact, this is also true. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has a large amount of capital for activities in the inner world, a large amount of goods, and a large number of personal connections, which will show its superiority during the subsequent competition between the Yin-Ao forces and others. They were not particularly optimistic about the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, but the outstanding performance of this assassin ambassador made them see that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce was by no means an ordinary person. Even an ambassador was so outstanding. The abilities and skills of the senior management of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce were impressive. Just imagine. Laughing to death, this is not an ordinary ambassador, he is simply the clone of the head of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, no different from Jia Yan himself rushing there. In short, the Yin-Ao forces this time have high hopes for their temporary ally, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and sincerely hope that they will help the Yin-Ao forces go further in the other world. Haha, I'll take my leave then, but... When the Black God clone arrived in front of the 500-kilometer tall passage from which it came, it turned around and asked the Wanjiang group of Yin-Ao high-ranking officials behind them the last words. Who is the ticket holder in your force? For a moment, there was silence. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the Black God's clone, and some even showed hostility. The Black God clone was startled for a moment, and then he understood. This matter is strictly confidential. Ticket holders are like natural enemies to all ticket holders in the other world. These days, the Yin-Ao forces have not mentioned this, and even the Black God Jia Yan hinted at it several times. Even if you don't say anything, it's obviously impossible to tell him. But coincidentally, the ambassador actually asked at this time. Isn't this ungrateful? Or is it that this ambassador really wants to get rid of their Yin-Ao forces? Their eyes were full of surprise and uncertainty. An ordinary expert, under the watchful eyes of several lower-level domain lords, dozens of domain lords, and a large number of existences below the galaxy level, would have been panicking inside, and it showed on his face. But Black God didn't. After he only reacted slightly, he still smiled. Sorry, Mr. Assassin, you may not know the danger of the ticket holder. We can't tell you the secret. After all, that person holds a huge opportunity for our Yin-Ao force to regain its glory in the future. The Speaker of the Noble Council, a person with a very high status in the Yin-Ao force, stood out from the crowd and said calmly to the Black God clone. That's all, I just asked casually, that's right. You won't believe me if you wait. See you next time. The Black God clone pretended to be disappointed, turned around and entered the subspace passage. He was so confident now that the Yin-Ao powerful people present thought he was angry. The less confident the person is and the more anxious the person is, the easier it is to fall into the inferior position. At least the angry expression of the Black God clone made the Yin-Ao forces feel a little apologetic. As an ally, it is indeed inappropriate for the other party to ask this question but not be able to answer it directly. But this matter is a major secret related to life and death in the future of their Yin-Ao forces, and it is impossible to tell it in any case. Today's Yin-Ao forces are beleaguered internally and externally. Except for the emergence of another powerful master who can dominate the country, there is no possibility of stabilizing the situation. Buzz. Assassin Ambassador, it's not that our forces don't trust you, but the identity of that adult is indeed too important. Except for a few top leaders, generals like me don't know his true identity. How can I represent him? Members of Parliament offer you our sincere apologies. The general who was flying with Jia Yan in the passage expressed a very apologetic gesture to Jia Yan. It doesn't matter, now that I think about it, it's Ambassador Meng Lang. The Black God clone waved his hand. He had little hope of finding out. But having no expectations doesn't mean he can't ask. This matter is like an attitude. It can not only control the power of Yin-Ao, but also make the other party have to worry about the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce when doing something. There are still benefits. The passage is extremely long and narrow, and it takes many days to fly like this. But it is safe and stable. Compared to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce train passage, it seems that not so many people can pass through it at one go, and it also takes longer. However, the safety and stability are definitely much better. The point is that Jia Yan no longer has to transport it himself or use a clone. It will save him a lot of energy over decades. It seems that I need to study it when I get back. The Black God clone once again sensed the structure of the passage. It must not take too long to turn back. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce can also try to construct such a passage, but the cost will be unprecedented. Compared to the rewards that are about to explode in this world, they are nothing. After a period of distortion, the world returned to its original state. Countless kilometers above the sky, there are white clouds and huge trees, just like a strange world that is larger than an ordinary planet. The unique giant world seen in the inner world will make anyone who returns from the outside world feel dazed for a while. No matter how many times you go in and out, there will always be a similar situation every time. Your Excellency, this village welcomes you to visit us again. The village chief, the head of the Yin AO force, personally sent the Black God clone away from the village with a smile. Black God Jia Yan nodded, led a group of branch members who had been waiting in the village for several days, and turned towards the location of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce branch. Master Assassin, we have investigated. This Yin AO force, you won't know unless you investigate. The energy hidden behind them is really terrifying. Many masters are lurking in nearby villages or forces. Several times our people have been, they discovered it and knew it was from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, so they didn't kill us. Well, there is no need to provoke the UNAO forces too much. Our latent methods and conventional methods are still very naive to them. It is not good to provoke them. This branch of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is, to put it bluntly, nothing more than a grassroots establishment. What was created during the period of rapid expansion of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is nothing compared to the forces of ticket holders like the Yin AO force. Even if the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce comes to fight with them, they may not have a chance of winning, let alone one of the thousands of branches. So exposure is a given. Without this ability, Jia Yan would despise the opponent. Is this the only force that wants to compete for promotion qualifications? Next, I will tell you some action plans and transaction methods. You will be the main person in charge of the Yin AO force for the time being. I don't need you to do a good job, but at least when I return during this period at the headquarters, you must stabilize the situation for me, do not provoke the Yin AO forces, and do not cut off contact and transactions with them. Stability is the most important thing, do you understand what I mean? The Black God clone clicked casually, and clicked out the local branch president who had been following him. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3346. The other party looked ecstatic, and his heart beat a few beats faster. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has now become a behemoth. As a local life form, after being promoted to the position of branch president, his biggest worry is how to compete with those branch presidents from the galaxy. As we all know, the main executives of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce are all from the galaxy. As an ordinary strong man in the other world, he must make great contributions if he wants to gain a status that is higher than that of President Bai. I didn't expect this opportunity to come before me. Please rest assured, Lord Assassin, I will faithfully complete my duties. That's good, I'm very confident about you. After encouraging the employees and giving them some chicken soup, the Black God clone entered the teleportation array in the branch. Yes, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will also build teleportation arrays, but they are relatively basic teleportation arrays, and they are only available in the mainland area, because only the mainland area has teleportation array manufacturers, not to mention the price, and everyone is very arrogant. They will not even go to the Imperial Island. Moreover, it cannot build an ultra-long-distance teleportation array like the ancient teleportation array. To put it bluntly, it is a bit useless. No matter how many times it is useless to pass it, it will still be far faster than flying by yourself or flying into subspace. The Black God clone left with peace of mind. It's not that he can really trust the branch to hand over the contacts and initial business content of Yin AO's forces, but behind him, he has already brought some secret law enforcement agencies from the Imperial Island. If members of this branch dare to play tricks, law enforcement agencies will dare to come and slaughter their families and all those involved. This is the reason why the Black God clone feels relieved. The branch president went out of his way to show his gratitude. If you think too much, people will not trust you. Crunch. Crunch. On top of the ship, another extremely small creature built a small house on the railing, and no one noticed it. For life in other worlds that are often hundreds of kilometers or even tens of thousands of kilometers high, it is difficult for them to even find a creature that is more than 1 meter tall and build a house several meters high. Who would look at dust every day? No matter how strong the master is, his eyes are still blind. Going to the next island, there is the ancient teleportation array. Those ancient coastal forces are really good people. They opened the ancient array to our galaxy chamber of commerce for free use. They are all bodhisattva-hearted. The Kurakama clone rinsed his mouth and brushed his teeth, making himself very clean in the morning. He didn't really take a sea ship to return to the Imperial Island. This speed was too slow. He just took a sea ship from one ancient formation island to the next, just like his original body went to the mainland, but it was just a series of connections. Get off the boat. Huh. Why is there an extra portion of the ticket money here? Humph, no matter whose it is, I found out that it is mine. The Black God's clone is a big shot, so how can he really rely on a mere ferry fare? Although no one noticed that there was an extra gadget on the boat after the trip, he still left the fare on his own initiative every time. But he didn't care whether the money could go into the boatman's pocket. I gave it to him anyway. A tiny figure shuttled through the subspace. The other passengers on the ship had not yet gotten through the seasickness period, but they all rushed to the station of the ancient forces with the teleportation array. Please open the teleportation array. Who is talking? Wow, I was shocked. It turned out to be Mr. Assassin. Haha, I'm not saying you are insignificant. I will activate the teleportation array for you. The guards were all startled. Not a master who heard a sound coming from the air for no apparent reason would remain calm even when he couldn't see it. He was also familiar with the assassin, after all, he had just teleported all the way from the island before. In this way, the Black God's clone who got on the teleportation array finally set foot on the island again after several twists and turns. At this time, more than a year had passed since the Black God clone went on mission. Above the dynasty, the entire power of the dynasty has fallen into endless chaos. Anyway, the royal family's affairs are like reincarnation. Some people want to sit in that position, and others are like hot potatoes and don't want to provoke them, but the ministers want them to come to power. In addition, the enemy has recently launched a fierce offensive, which has caused panic in the military and political circles of the dynasty. Countless troops and armies in various places have begun to divide more fiercely. Until a few days ago, a new army from the island, because of its youth and vigor, sneaked up to the foot of the capital and showed off its power, threatening to conquer the capital. The new emperor, who no longer knew who he was, once again issued an emergency order. The new enemy attacking the city slowly seemed to be encircling the city for reinforcements, but as they waited, both sides were dumbfounded. After waiting for a long time, no troops from the imperial dynasty came to help. You know, the nearest imperial army is only more than 200 million kilometers away from the capital, which is equivalent to a branch of the Imperial Guard. But for this, people say they are afraid that the enemy will capture the camp after the troops leave the camp, which will affect future defense. It was unfavorable, so I couldn't hold on. Further afield, other large cities, regions, and other troops were all controlled by local bureaucrats, who actually restrained their subordinates and refused to send troops to serve the king for various reasons. It's just embarrassing. At this juncture, the Black God clone returned to the Imperial Island. Sir, this is what happened. Now everyone is waiting to see whether the new enemy will attack the capital or prepare to withdraw. After all, they may not be all benefited by conquering the capital of the dynasty. Haha, things are going really interesting, but I won't go there. Arrange a joint teleportation method for me to return to Xiancheng. I want to go back as soon as possible. Yes. On this day, the clone of the Black God, who had traveled a long distance, returned to Xiancheng and came to the headquarters of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which has gradually become the administrative center. He was slightly startled. I saw a few big creatures being alone in a quiet courtyard deep in the administrative hall. Thanks to the vastness of the other world, even in the administrative center, it is easy to find huge spaces. For example, the remote courtyard where they are now is about 10,000 kilometers wide. It is not huge, but it can accommodate most of it. The shape of an Earth. It is more than enough to create a private club space. The clone of the black god dressed in black jumped into the space where hearts were full of joy and butterflies were flying. It happened that the people discussing in the center had finished talking about the topic, and they all got up and walked towards the outside world. Oh! Everyone discovered the arrival of this tiny human creature. Several of them showed obviously meaningful expressions, but there was no communication between the two parties and they passed by each other. The last one said calmly, "Your Excellency Jia Yan is so clever. This clone still exists, which makes me very envious. I envy everything. It will be difficult for you to improve your strength in the future." The voice of the real body came out. The other party was not annoyed when he heard this, but looked back with no sign of joy or anger, and continued to fly out of the space following the crowd in front. The black god clone didn't have any special mood. He could recognize the identity of this troop. It was the 6 masters who had formed an alliance with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce earlier and whose whereabouts had become erratic since then. The last speaker was the master of subspace talent who had a fight with the black god's clone. At this time, the other party was talking strangely, which was normal. Creak. The moment the clone and the real body made eye contact, both parties accepted the other's recent memories, and everything was unspoken. The Uneo Kingdom, the aristocratic feudal system, no, it should be said to be a brand new starry sky system, which is interesting. Jia Yan nodded, and after comprehending the memory of the black god's clone, he suddenly felt a little interested in the location of the Uneo Kingdom. However, Zozo just wanted to trade star cores there. The journey was long and inconvenient, so he gave up the idea of going there in person. "Then I will continue to be responsible for that," the black god clone asked. "Well, you are responsible. That galaxy sounds unique, but in fact it is not too unique. In this world, there are too many similar outsiders, and behind each group there is a unique galaxy that belongs to them. I'll wait. It is impossible to engage in diplomacy all of them, just focus on a few of them. Now it is considered a good start, and then we can carry forward this matter. Jia Yan Liang's method is pretty good for this. A clone is responsible for one place, or some relatively reliable subordinates are responsible for a starry sky. Each place trades 1 or 2 star cores worthy of its own use every once in a while. There are only dozens of star cores, and they are probably not needed. It won't take too long to collect. Moreover, there are some products in those galaxies that are different from those in the Milky Way or other worlds. If you have the opportunity, you can use the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's trading system to acquire them. Even if you don't use them, you can still trade with other forces and make a profit on the price difference. It can be regarded as open source for the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The Black God clone nodded, and then looked behind at the direction where the previous Alliance Masters had left. He also learned the ins and outs through the memory given by his real body. These 6 Masters did not suddenly come to the door now, but had been contacting the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce half a year ago. It seems that they have refused to leave the outside world for decades and have their own plans. Just like Senior Haitian, Jia Yan didn't know the origins of it without telling him that he owned ancient books or was even a ticket holder. These 6 masters come from the 5 top forces in the galaxy. They must have much more information than the old man. As for whether they will have the opportunity to obtain admission tickets, it is unknown. The probability cannot be said to be non-existent, which is why they have been acting strangely, and they have formed an alliance with the Milky Way in the other world but are still at a distance, and their behavior is quite inconsistent. If these 6 people also hold admission tickets, everything makes sense. Their alliance with us cannot be sincere, but they will not fall out with us, so they are hanging on like this. It's just, what were you doing during the years when you disappeared? It seems that you have not left the Imperial Island, and it seems that you have disappeared for a long time. Jia Yan nodded to the Black God clone, and the Black God clone turned around and left the courtyard with understanding. The work scope of the Black God clone is still quite large. Even if he comes back, he will soon be involved in new work, but he can take a rest before that. Dad, you're back. As soon as they arrived at the human house occupied by the Black God clone, there were screams of surprise in the large space, and a girl who looked like a girl trotted out of the yard. Chiao, you are so old, but you are still so careless. Hey, don't lie to me with the words I used when I was a kid. I'm only a few dozen years old now. You guys keep saying that I've grown up, but compared to serious creatures in the universe, I'm still a child. You have to compare yourself with the people on Earth. Even if people on Earth are dozens of years old, they are not children even according to the current view. I'm not a serious Earthling. The Black God clone was speechless for a moment. In fact, that's right. Strictly speaking, Geomakiao looks similar to Earthlings, but in fact, they don't even have half a cent to do with each other. Let's put it this way, the difference between the two parties is such that even if Xiao Qiao gets married and starts a career with the people on Earth, it is very likely that she will not be able to have offspring. This thing is called reproductive isolation in biology. Let alone the life forms of the two, even the life levels are very different. Her parents are Jia Yan's earthly avatar and Satsamakan, and she was nourished by her true body during pregnancy. She has a large number of signs of high-level life, which is much better than her brother Jiarong. After all, Jiarong simply used part of the genetic technology of his real body when he was weak to modulate it. Okay, Daddy won't talk about you anymore, you're just a kid. In essence, Xiao Qiao is really a child. According to the perfect level of her parents, her lifespan will naturally be around 1,000 years old. After a few decades, the cost-effectiveness may not even be comparable to the original age of a 10-year-old child on Earth. What's more, she has practiced, and now her strength has reached the star level, and her lifespan has become about 2,000 to 3,000 years, which is not even an adult at this age. Have you visited Mommy recently? Well, I'm going to see Dad. It's just that Dad is too big. I feel more comfortable with you, Dad. Look what this says. Only the Black God clone can understand Dad comes and Dad goes. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't know which father is which. The real body has been a little tasteless lately. This daughter is really only close to the clone of Haishan who brought her up single-handedly. She always sneaks over to ask Shiyuan every few days to ask when the father of Haishan will come home. Didn't you practice in the Milky Way? Why have you been running here recently? I'm so unaccustomed to being there. Things are so small. The trading area is not as big as Xiancheng. There are so many people living here. I'm almost bored to death. Hearing his daughter's complaints, the Black God clone was speechless for a while. Is the trade area small? Not too small. The trade area that was originally established based on one channel has now been divided into many areas. Countless people have already lived there. The total population of ordinary large-scale forces may not be as large as that of the trade area, let alone the number of people in it. Many experts. But that's for the Milky Way. The world here is different. How big is a Xiancheng alone? The city area is not measured in kilometers, but in thousands of kilometers. If the area under the jurisdiction of Xiancheng is included, it will be calculated in hundreds of millions of kilometers. No matter how large the trade area is, it cannot compare. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3347. You, don't forget that you are from the Milky Way. If you can't stay in the other world in the future, won't you get sick from boredom when you return to the Milky Way? Who told me that I grew up here? I'll talk about the future later. Geomakiao never thought about whether she could stay in the future world. She only thought about the present. Let's talk about it when you're satisfied. By the way, how is your current practice progress? Where are the group of formation practitioners outside? The Black God clone was quite concerned about this. He already knew the result of Xiaoqiao's words from the real body's memory, but the real body didn't ask too many questions. He still wanted to ask a few more questions. Haha, Senior Edissa praises me for being so good. My training progress has been mentioned recently. Otherwise, why would Senior Edissa give me leave? At this point, Geomakiao finally started to tremble, and his nose turned up to the sky. She has never converted the formation gene, so in these days, the speed of cultivation, especially in the formation skills, has been losing to Junior Gia 11. But during this period, because Gia 11 was preoccupied with family matters, and because he still didn't pay enough attention to cultivation, he was gradually overtaken by Xiao Qiao. 2 days before entering the other world, they competed again. Gia 11 tried her best but failed to defeat Geomakiao. Only then did Edisha agree to Geomakiao's request to come to the other world and take a few more days off. You bullied your nephew. After hearing this, the Black God clone couldn't help but touch his daughter's head. What nephew? He is older than me, Geomakiao said unconvinced. Indeed, then, what about those formation practitioners? How are they doing? The Black God clone finally mentioned the group of guys he was more concerned about. The cultivators of the formation Dao are exactly the group brought back by the ape clones. A lot of time has passed at this time, and there must be changes. They are indeed very powerful. In the past 2 years, our family members have taken us to build and create the world. Otherwise, they usually have no place to spend their energy on cultivation. Now, they have a place for them to spend their energy. The speed of cultivation, the reaction has not slowed down, and the ape father has brought back a group of other array talents. They have already transformed the array genes, which is in contrast to the previous batch. The two sides are competing with each other, and energy will be sent every other day. Come to the other world, mommy's father is happy. Yeah, that's really good. The Black God clone nodded. The actual situation had long been known from the real person, but he couldn't help but feel secretly happy. Things are going smoothly. Every once in a while, a large amount of formation power will be transported to the other world to provide for the cultivation of the real body, and the cultivation of the real body has finally been brought up recently. Coupled with me and the few hidden clones, I think even a group of guru-level experts or lower-level domain lords can still fight. Therefore, today's Xiancheng is finally no longer what it seems on paper. It's more powerful. Although it is still relying on Jia Yan alone, the clones can be regarded as powerful. When gathered together, they are roughly equivalent to several lower-level domain lords. Of course, they are just ordinary lower-level domain lords. A few more powerful ones will still be needed. Neil. But how can there be so many powerful lower-level domain lords in the world? Even if they came from other galaxies, they didn't just go to Xiancheng and fight blindly. What's more, if you come one or two, it won't work at all. If you come in a group, there's nothing to take over Xiancheng, so why are they here? In this way, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce should be impregnable these days. Just take advantage of this period of time to improve your real body's combat power. And I, including several other clones, are not unable to improve their strength. The eyes of the Black God clone flickered. Dad, I'm hungry. Hurry up and roast the ants. I haven't eaten your roasted ants for a long time. Geomakiao shook the arm of the Black God clone beside him. You glutton, it turns out you were thinking about Daddy's craftsmanship. Anyway, I haven't baked for you for a long time, so I'm going to catch it now. There's no need to catch them. I've already caught 3 of them and they're locked up in the yard. Can you finish eating 3 of them? These ants weigh several thousand kilograms each. Leave it and eat it slowly. Anyway, I want to eat to my heart's content this time before going back. You. It is said that Jia Makiao's reputation in the outside world is that of a quiet literary girl, but around her, she is a lively child, but the Black God clone is also quite satisfied. As a child, this is how you look. Otherwise, it would be boring to read books all day long. But that's what he said. After roasting the ants, Jia Makiao did as he said and slipped upstairs to read a book. She is still a literary girl at heart. Forget it, this little one is tired too. Let her return to her original life. I also have to try my best to improve myself. The Black God clone came to the retreat room and quickly took out the 100-kilometer-long pendant. His opportunity to become stronger lies in this pendant. Apart from anything else, if you crack the space advantage on the pendant, your strength will naturally increase a lot. At the same time, if you don't want to die, move quickly, the bastards over there are about to rush over. In another part of the universe, a monkey-faced creature covered with long hair was urging many young creatures around him. This group of creatures was running around in a mess, and some were crying and howling. They really didn't expect that they would be picked by an elder. They thought their lives were about to change, but they didn't want to face a crisis at the last moment. We can't escape. The person chasing us is a junior territory lord. What? 2 young creatures that looked about 300 to 400 meters in size ran towards each other. Really, I won't lie to you. Those guys behind me are not that simple. There is a late-level domain lord, and several others are also domain lord level masters. Although I don't know the strength of this elder who invited us, but he should be. They can't be dealt with. Let's hurry up and stop following them. Go over there. One of the young creatures had more clever ideas, so he led another friend and ran towards another space. The ape creature obviously saw their actions, but did not stop them in any way. Because there are too many young people like them, he has long said that those who are willing to join are voluntary, and whoever wants to leave can leave anytime and anywhere. And now is the time for them to leave. If you want to return next, it's not that simple. Ha ha ha. These little guys really believe in you. Before the many escapees had taken a few steps, they desperately heard a sound like morning bells and evening drums coming from behind. An overwhelming sound of terror was heard, and the pressure even suppressed a few weaklings until they spewed blood. However, the senior ape stood in front of him as cold as ice. His figure, which was dozens of kilometers long, was like a majestic peak, and all the pressure suddenly disappeared in an instant. Your Excellency, please report your family name. I remember that there is no junior domain lord like you in this area. Maybe we have a relationship in other places. The ape creature looked neither humble nor arrogant, and showed no fear in the face of a lower-level domain lord. Ha ha ha, you are just a weakling, who has anything to do with me? I am not something someone like you can recognize. The other party felt the general feeling of the ape's strength and just felt scornful. However, this ape creature can directly block his pressure. Even if he uses any trump cards, he still recognizes the opponent's strength. Senior is so powerful that it is naturally not something that a little person like me can recognize. But since Senior doesn't like me, why did he block the pursuit in front of me? Asked the ape creature. Humph, if I want to chase you, I will chase you. Can't I just see that you are uncomfortable? Senior, if you just don't like it, I don't think you will pursue him. After all, for a master who has reached your level, no action will be meaningless. The opponent's surging huge figure gradually solidified in the black clouds of the universe, like a dragon with claws, but the color of their dragon was translucent, and the entire body was blended into the darkness. Why is there no meaning? What I want to do is meaning. In other words, you want to teach me to do things. I don't dare, it's just, if Senior doesn't explain clearly, it will be difficult for Junior to communicate with Senior. Senior, I don't know what you want to do. The ape creature, no, or rather the ape clone, felt very helpless. All of a sudden, I went to a faction I had good relations with to recruit talented people, but on my way back, I encountered something like this. How unlucky. Could it be the enemy that the real body had provoked before? I have never seen this person before. There are actually not many lower-level territory lords in the Milky Way, and all the wrenches with names can count them clearly, but this one, the ape clone, has never had a name in his memory bank. Junior, no matter who I am, you can either come with me this time or die here. It's your choice. Let me go with you or die. When the ape clone heard this condition, he understood in his heart that this guy came with bad intentions. That's right. If it weren't for the bad intentions of those who came, how could he have taken action directly in front of so many junior aircraft just now? Fortunately, he still wanted to settle the matter. After all, he brought so many young people with him and casually killed a lot of people. These are the nutrients of the real body's strength. But when things came to a head, he had no choice. Well, I didn't want to cause trouble at first, but since you want to cause trouble, you can only blame yourself for being ignorant. The ape clone showed a faint smile. The slightly weak momentum just now was gone. You. The transparent dragon-shaped creature at the lower level of the territory lord was just startled and confused, but suddenly he felt that the world in front of him had changed in other colors. In view of the general environment. Boom. A huge fist fell from the sky. Fist formation. Hit me. The ape creature clenched a fist, and a formation of brilliance formed in front of his fist that enveloped the edge of his fist. He stepped on the explosive power of the formation, and like an arrow from a string, he jetted towards the dragon-shaped creature. After many years, this clone, who already had the strength to fight against master-level masters, started fighting again. At this moment, his strength is naturally different from before. But even he himself doesn't know how strong it can be. How brave, what a witherworm trick. The dragon-shaped creature felt furious. A guy who is obviously only at the territory lord level at best dares to attack him, a lower-level territory lord. What does this mean? It means that he does not take his senior in front of him. Then he would let this ape creature see the true strength of the lower level of the territory lord. If a strong man doesn't show off his power, do you think he is a sick cat? The dragon's claws were grabbed directly, and a sharp brilliance surged in the space. As expected, it is a creature with the shape of a dragon, and its combat power cannot be underestimated. The breath of this claw scratched through the vacuum of the universe, and it traveled hundreds of kilometers like lightning and thunder. Before the ape clone could attack the opponent, it had already arrived first and landed on his face. You must know that the opponent is a serious lower-level territory lord. In terms of combat ability, he can definitely crush the ape clone. But the ape clone was not afraid. The fist in front of him bloomed with blue array brilliance. The brilliance collided with the breath of the claws, and the two made a tooth-breaking crunching sound, and then they were both extinguished. However, the brilliance of the formation on the fist's edge was generating new power again in an endless stream, replenishing the energy that had been destroyed just now. This. The dragon-shaped creature felt his heart skip a beat. This scene made him have a strange thought. After all, the attack he just made, no matter how much he looked down on the opponent, still exerted about 50% of his power. It was definitely something that ordinary domain lords could not resist. But the other party not only blocked it, but also seemed to do it quite easily. What is that blue glow? It was as if the opponent's physical strength was lost, but the aura on his body did not change much. Certainly not the energy of the ape creature itself. Laughing to death, this is the power from the true body. Long before that, the real body had given part of the formation power to the ape clone, just like the formation power that Edisha had left on other people. It was a wasted power when she left it behind. Not only would it not affect the real body, looking for books at the clone can even use this power at critical moments. Of course, Jia Yan's power storage is no longer on the same level as what Edisha has now. It's just suitable for use as a clone, but it may be difficult for others to use it well. In short, the ape clone regarded this part of the formation power as consumption power, neutralizing the opponent's power in an instant, and its stamina was restored, making up for the formation power consumed by the individual. Huh? The battle over there has begun. Senior seems to have nothing to lose. Ah! How is this possible? The master who is chasing us is the enemy of our star domain, a junior domain lord. At this time, the two young men had fled very far, but when they saw the fighting scene behind them, their eyes suddenly glazed over. The ape creature didn't feel powerful, which was the reason for their escape. But now I feel that this senior ape can actually resist the opponent. Are we still running away? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3348. Damn it, try your best. Let's stay and check the situation. What if that senior and the opponent are evenly matched? These two young creatures were the ones ranked higher among the many contestants due to their talents. They originally ate the pie of the ape clones, and thought that they would advance rapidly in strength in the future, marry by fume, and embark on the road to success. The peak days of life are coming. I didn't expect that when I was about to reach the end of my happiness, I would be hunted down by a lower-level territory lord. They were all desperate, but when they looked back, they saw that the senior who was leading them on the road, who looked so humble, actually resisted the domain lord's back steps. Oh my God! We are actually walking with a master who is enough to fight with the lower level of the territory lord along the way. Thinking that they and others had spoken one or two words to the senior alone, the two young men could not help but swallow their saliva, then looked at each other, and unswervingly found a small interstellar body to hide behind. Waiting for the outcome of the battle. If that senior wins, their actions will definitely impress each other. But if he escapes, even if the senior wins or beats the opponent away, he will definitely not take in the escapee again. Damn it, are they really geniuses? If he were a genius, he wouldn't come here to do some talent test with this senior, but would go to their local power and become a seed player. In this starry sky, the reputation of the ape clone is not high, and people in the influence do not attach too much importance to his recruitment. Of course, as long as this trip is successful and the strength of those who come back is greatly improved, the situation will definitely be turned upside down next time. Rumble. However, all that will happen in the future. What the ape clone needs to do now is how to drive away the dragon-shaped creature in front of him. Killing is impossible. He is not his true form. Poof. I finally broke through your weird defense. Watch me hit your body, huh? What the hell? The dragon-shaped creature and the ape creature fought head-on in close combat. They fought vigorously and used 80% of their strength. As expected, they defeated the formation defense on the surface of the opponent's body. They thought they would smash the opponent's body into pieces with one blow, but the scene was completely different from what he had imagined. It turned out that the ape clone's body was very slippery. When his paw came down, his body was not scratched, but it slipped away from the hair. Senior, this blow was really merciless. I thought it was a mosquito bite. The ape clone didn't take it seriously and just laughed indifferently. Such a sarcastic expression caused the dragon-shaped creature's face to darken. He came to chase this ape creature with a purpose. However, during the fight, he felt that even if he was merciless, it seemed that it would not be easy to defeat the master of the trade area in front of him. Sure enough, you have some skills, then let me see how far you can defend yourself. After his face turned ugly, his dragon eyes narrowed, and a faint golden color appeared on his claws. The momentum suddenly changed. Finally something powerful is here, come on. The ape clone's expression was not moved, and it just dealt with everything calmly. It was as if he had already fought against the lower level of the territory lord. Arrogant. There was ferocity in the eyes of the dragon-shaped creature, and he seemed to see the despair when the transportation genius in the trading area fell in front of him. How could such a low-strength ape creature have ever seen the strength of a real lower-level domain lord? If you really see it, you will definitely be scared to the point of peeing on the spot. Puff. The next moment, the dragon-shaped creature's tail was violently blocked by the fist. The dragon-shaped creature was stunned for an instant. Just now, he was hoping to see the panic expression on his face transfer to his face. No. What happened? I am a master of the lower level of domain lord. Ah. Why? After one blow, the opponent actually withstood it without holding back at all? And it doesn't seem like there's much pressure. You. So this is all your strength? I'm really disappointed. The ape clone showed its white fangs, and a creepy smile appeared on its face. Wait a minute, are you also a fellow? The lower level of the domain lord will not fight the lower level of the domain lord. We have something to talk about. The dragon-shaped creature was so frightened that it took a few steps back, its eyes filled with uncertainty. He didn't even notice that such an ape creature seemed to be of the same level. But just now his real blow was blocked by the opponent without any tricks. This blockage seemed to use some external force, but it didn't look like it, because the fluctuations in power were very similar to the fluctuations in the opponent's body, as if they were integrated into one. So the other party may be a guy who pretends to be a pig and eats the tiger. Wait? No need to wait, let's fight first and then talk. The ape clone's eyes flashed with ferocity, and its fists pursued him without any moves. It's like not using any moves, but hitting the target with your moves. This is called winning with no moves but with one move at a time. You are so unreasonable. What about mutual respect and friendship between people of the same rank? Didn't we, the lower rank of domain lords, agree not to attack each other? Who respects friendship with you? You can attack me if you dare to love me. But if I fight back, you respect friendship and fall in love with me. How can there be such a good thing in the world? The dragon-shaped creature felt the power of the fist, its claws clashed with the opponent from time to time, and its tail swung up wildly, its eyes filled with anxiety. He knows that his strength is at the bottom among the lower-level territory lords, because he is only a remote area lord who has successfully been promoted to the lower-level territory lords. The process can be described as a narrow escape, and now his potential has come to an end. In addition, he has not been to many prosperous places and his methods have not been developed much, so his strength is among the lower levels of domain lords, not to mention the bottom, but almost the same as the second. It's just embarrassing. The ape creature in front of me now seems to be of the same level. It definitely can't be beaten. As he retreated, he looked around, thinking about his retreat. Boom. Suddenly, the opponent's fist fell on his body again, causing the dragon-shaped creature to become ferocious in pain. You bastard, you pretend to be a pig and eat the tiger, but now you really want to kill me? I'm not someone to be trifled with. As he spoke, his body became unreal. It has a vague appearance, as if it has blended into the interior of the space. Sure enough, they are not creatures of the Milky Way. The ape clone has been guessing for a long time, and now the other party's methods have verified his guess. This guy is not a native creature from the Milky Way. The fighting methods used by native creatures would be more or less like those of the Milky Way, but this dragon-shaped creature is different. It uses all moves that the ape clone has never heard of. You must know that the combat skills he has mastered are the same as those of his real body, so the opponent should not be a real strong man in the galaxy. There was a dragon-shaped shadow flickering in the space. The place where the opponent entered did not look like a subspace or a gravitational wave space. The clone did not know what kind of fighting techniques the opponent used. But one thing he was sure of was that he could sense the opponent's figure, so this way of sneaking into a unique space shouldn't be that high-end. Groan. While he was observing, a tail attack came out from the left side where the dragon-shaped phantom was not. This move was like a rabbit rising and a falcon falling, and it caught people off guard. The dragon-shaped shadow just now was still more than 100 kilometers away, but it suddenly came to the left. This move is called Fame from the east to the west, please hurt me. The eyes of the dragon-shaped shadow showed a fierce light, and its tail flicked with great force. Injury? It doesn't exist. Although the ape clone was also startled, he still responded calmly. His body instantly felt like it was covered in a large amount of grease, and it was too late to hide. He was using his hair to defend himself against the attack. Moreover, a large number of formation defense techniques are deployed, and there is the power of the real body on them, so the defense is not a problem. In this moment of fighting for time, he had already raised his defense ability to the highest level. The next moment, the opponent's attack came to the body. Poof! Under the unbelievable gaze of the dragon-shaped creature, this sure win move of the divine dragon flicked its tail directly across the ape creature's body surface, as if without much effort, pushing the opponent away. However, it didn't look like it hurt the other party too much. What the hell? He simply couldn't accept such a result. Sorry, although I have a lot of defense means, my strongest defense will always be my body. The calm voice of the ape clone echoed in his ears, causing him to be stunned for a moment and unable to react. But he couldn't react, but the ape clone was able to react enough. The clone's fist took the opportunity to hit the opponent's dragon tail, causing a loud noise in the space. Roar! Dragon roars. The next moment, the dragon-shaped creature hid deep in the space again. It seems like some form of space composition that I don't understand. It's different from the world in subspace. This level of space shouldn't be that complicated, but it definitely shouldn't be underestimated. The ape clone felt the opponent's move, and felt no nervousness in his heart, but looked calm as before. In view of the general environment, this makes the other party feel even more pressure. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have acted. He has been waiting for a long time. Because it is an important task as a striker, he has always been relatively nervous. But in this team composed of so-called talented people, he seems to have some strength, but for him, after being told that it was like a joke, he still chose to take action. It's a pity, one wrong step and another wrong step. He was forbearing enough and deliberately separated him from the talented people. What he was afraid of was that any master of the same level among the talented people was acting as a guard secretly. But what he never expected was that the escort he thought he had found out was the real master. It seems that I got the wrong mission this time. The dragon-shaped creature felt a huge pain in its tail, with a wronged expression on its face. Even if a super master of mine came to this galaxy to carry out an assassination mission, I still encountered such a master in the deserted starry sky. How can I live? I am so unlucky. No need to leave, no need to rush, just stay and be our guest. The more the ape creature fights, the more defiant it becomes. He was already certain that the opponent should be an extremely weak lower-level domain lord. Even in the Milky Way, such a lower level of territory lord should not exist. It's just that in theory, such a lower-level territory lord can appear. In fact, every lower-level territory lord in the galaxy must have been promoted through unimaginable hardships. Their strength is definitely not as simple as that of ordinary lower-level territory lords. Of course, the weakest ones are still the same. belongs to the bottom of combat power. But I have never heard of anyone of the same level being so weak that it is theoretically possible. So the ape clone is quite interested in it. Because this made him feel the meaning of the life level. If he studied such an individual, it might be beneficial to the promotion of his body. Don't even think about it. The dragon-shaped creature suddenly became excited. This guy was so murderous that he not only wanted to defeat him, but also wanted to get his people. I look down upon myself so much. Even if you are a fellow member of the Milky Way. I'm not afraid of any steps. Besides, there is someone behind me. Having said this, he immediately shut up. Go on, I just want some information. The ape clone looked at the junior in the first level of the domain lord's back level jokingly, with a very expectant expression on his face. The other party stopped talking. Knowing that it was impossible for the other party to let him go, he gave up the idea of leaving peacefully and instead started a fierce confrontation with the ape clone. As he kept beating, he gradually discovered that this ape creature. The strength is a bit weird. The power of the body is like a lump of reply. But as long as he used the so-called power of the formation, he would advance by leaps and bounds, which made him have the absurd idea that this strength may not be the opponent's own, and this kind of violation of the laws of the universe. Moreover, this ape creature moves slowly, and its whole body defense relies on the so-called formation and its own hair defense. He doesn't look like a pure supermaster. He felt that he still had a winning side. Because the opponent's attack power can be felt with each strike. It remains at a certain level of power without any attenuation, but it will no longer increase. Although this bit of power would cause pain to him, it would never be fatal. It seems he still has a chance to win. As long as all the power of this ape creature is consumed, he can calmly go forward to capture it, and then take it back for him to study, slice it, steam and stir-fry. In short, there are many tricks he can play, and maybe he can study the opponent's strength. It's obviously not like a master, but the level of sudden burst of combat power is similar to that of a supermaster. That is to say, fight a protracted war. He didn't believe it anymore. Although his strength was low, his race belonged to the noble group in his hometown. His natural endurance was long-lasting and he couldn't compare to the thin little ape in front of him. It really can't be compared. It's less sleepy than this ape clone. Because his true power is actually borrowed from his true body. The upper limit of explosive power is limited by the strength of this clone. He really can't compare to the instant killing move, and it might be a little dangerous. Can you compare your endurance with him? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3349. First of all, you have to get rid of the real body that is connected to your own power before you can kill the clone. But is the true power so easy to solve? Although the other party is also a master at the lower level of territory lord, judging from the level of his strength, he is at most a master who may not be able to reach the heavenly road. In fact, he is still far behind the real strong person at the lower level of territory lord. One chip. What's more, endurance is one of the talents of evolved beasts. How can such a dragon-shaped creature be compared with it if it is said to be stronger in endurance? The power of Jia Yan's true form has reached the level of an intermediate heavenly path master. It can be said that the two are not at the same level at all. Huh. Boom 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 boom. The starry sky cracked, and earth-shattering explosions were heard one after another. On the surface of an abandoned small-scale mining planet, two young faces looked at each other. That dragon-like monster should have admitted a long time ago that he is the lower level of the territory lord. Why can't we deal with our instructor now? Don't you need to think too much? The instructor is also a junior domain lord. Haha, can you believe it? After both sides looked at each other, there was another burst of ecstasy. The instructor is also a junior territory lord, and this is the one who accepts their followers, so the existence behind the instructor will be terrifying. They never thought in their entire lives that one day they would be able to have a relationship with a top powerhouse. Don't be too happy that one hasn't been defeated yet. The two of them looked solemn again. What, such terrifying endurance, huh? As soon as they poked their heads out, in the starry sky around them, there was a translucent creature, which was violently knocked out of some space, and then directly met the eyes of these two people. Compared with a body that is hundreds of kilometers long and a young creature that is several hundred meters long, it is like a science fiction monster meeting a small insect. Wow! A second later, the dragon-shaped creature grabbed the two young men and flew out of the starry sky. Monkey! If you catch your people, I will kill them. I know you value them, right? There are many over there who can't escape. If you move, I will kill a few more. Anyway, even if I don't catch them, it will be extremely difficult for you to hunt me down. Incompetent bungler. The ape clone's fist had already hit the dragon-shaped creature, but was blocked by the two young figures in front of him. He hesitated for a moment, shook his head and put away his fist. Senior, senior. The two young men could only feel their eyes filled with tears. The deadly punch of the fist just hit their eyeballs, but was forcefully withdrawn, which made them unmoved. They really didn't dare to move, their bodies were tightly trapped and they couldn't move. Let's do this. I'll let you go. Don't touch even one of their hairs. Oh? Do you really value it so much? Originally, the dragon-shaped creature had no confidence at all to threaten the opponent with a group of weak people, but looking at it this way, it was really effective to capture such weak people. Looking back at the retreat, I saw a large number of weak creatures escaping in the starry sky. There were hundreds of directions in which I wanted to leave. They caught them all along the way, and the amount they caught would definitely make the other party even more afraid of them. Ha ha ha, okay, I believe in your character, so I'll just leave. Please help yourself. The ape clone nodded and looked at the opponent's retreating movement as if he was watching. Alas! Just let me go. The dragon-shaped creature looked weird. Putting himself in his shoes, if he had the upper hand and wanted to let the enemy go, he wouldn't be able to do it. And this ape creature doesn't look like the kind of character that would make misjudgments. Could it be because the other party didn't grasp? Still have a chance to win? His eyes twinkled. But seeing the old ape creature looking at him, he finally gave up the idea. You know, the so-called formation power exerted by the opponent, he still can't think of any way to break it, and he has not tested the opponent's endurance limit. He can't bear the power like a bottomless pit. Goo. This dragon-shaped creature got into a space similar to subspace, swayed, and left this place like a snake. Senior. It's all our fault, causing all the efforts of Senior to be wasted. The two talented young men hiding behind the asteroid flew out of the bunker and cried bitterly. The ape clone was startled. He wanted to say that he just couldn't bear to keep the other party. But how could this be said out loud? If you say it, your gong will be broken. So I had to pretend to cough, nodded, and said, no wonder you, but if you hadn't been waiting here, I would have killed the offender here. It's very true, Senior has so many magical powers that you can't even get a good deal with a low-level domain master. Unfortunately, we still doubted your strength before, alas, now we will definitely follow you. Practice hard so that you can repay your seniors. Haha, having this kind of heart shows that you are a teachable kid. No need to say any more disgusting words. Please help me gather the scattered geniuses. I don't know how many people will be missing this time. Alas. Senior has a kind heart. Even if there are any casualties, they know better and won't blame you. Am I afraid they will be blamed after they die? There are too many people who are afraid of death. This wave of losses is huge. The ape clone sighed angrily and said no more words. The two young men also saw the senior's expression and thought that he must be compassionate, so they immediately took the initiative to help. Not long after, many talented people who had fled were gathered together. To be honest, there must have been some casualties among the crowd in the fight just now, but definitely not many. Most of them fled. Just after following the senior, we encountered such a formidable enemy. They would be troubled if they didn't escape. If the ape clone hadn't shown a power that could rival the lower level of the territory lord, the number of young talents who would turn around would have been reduced by more than half. Senior, there are about 70% of the number of people before. You see. That's all, I'll just treat the others as dead in the aftermath of the fight just now. If you succeed in learning in the future, don't harass those who left. After all, everyone has their own ambitions. Yes. Look, what does it mean to be kind-hearted? This is what it means to be kind-hearted. For the sake of the ordinary lives of more than 10,000 of them, the senior is willing to conflict with the junior territory lord. The escapee can be said to be repaying kindness with hatred, and he will not what to pursue. What a good person. Studying under such a person will definitely not treat us badly. You won't be treated badly. Jia Yan also wants them to provide a stable source of energy. Not long after, this severely damaged team of talented people arrived at the trade area. Compared with the earlier talent team in the trade area, the current talent team is completely different and has completely changed its appearance. They have a formal establishment. In addition to their usual training work, some of them are also involved in the project of creating the world, providing stable formation construction and other mental work. The other part directly entered the functional units of the trade zone affiliated to the Geo family. Not to mention that the Geo family, who had nothing to do and was regarded as a burden by all the middle and high-level people in the trade zone, with such a large number of weak but large supporters, began to gradually become useful. This is a change that Jia Yan himself did not expect. You can come with me. I'm glad that our team of talented people has grown again. A group of talented people followed the old genius into the shady area where they were. The ape clone simply became the hands-off shopkeeper. Everything is on track, and even these energy-providing carriers know how to roll themselves up. He, a person who sits back and reaps the benefits, can be said to be quite satisfied. Dad, the recent creation of the world has been roughly completed. I wonder if you will attend the ceremony when the operation starts. Jiarong came to the ape clone and asked. The ape clone knew that he was not referring to this clone, but the real body in the other world. That would be face-saving. There is nothing uncomfortable about the clones, because they are all themselves. He shook his head. I'm afraid the real body is not available, so I'll take a trip. Well, in 3 days the world of creation will be officially opened. Once the formation and world cycle are opened, the world will run automatically forever. Speaking of this, Jiarong was still a little excited. Not everyone can create the world. God knows how much wealth the Geo family has contributed to this in the past few years. Now that it is finally completed, they have almost forgotten what their original purpose was. They only feel that after completing this world, many of their dreams can be achieved internally. A world that speeds up dozens, even thousands, or tens of thousands of times. Just asking, are you surprised or not? Of course, the two worlds are inextricably linked and have basic laws. The faster the world over there accelerates, the slower the strong people inside practice. Unless the time is completely synchronized with the normal universe, the speed of practice cannot be the same as the current world. However, in the case of synchronization, it is necessary to what does that world do? It's just that this is only in terms of cultivation, but the benefits in other aspects are obvious. For example, calculating and conceiving certain things is like cheating in it. Adisha can calculate a lot of good things after throwing it in for a year. Experiencing life is an extremely huge advantage, because every basic thing in it can be controlled by the Geo family. Jiurong has decided that the initial prototype of the world is to train many juniors, including the Jiu family, to improve their aspirations. Looking at Jiurong gearing up, the ape clone just smiled. After experiencing the created world in the hands of the Black God, he no longer thought this thing was so amazing. Moreover, the restrictions are quite large. It seems that it will also hinder the research of the origin of the world by strong people. Otherwise, why don't there are so many strong people in the world create a similar world to practice, and wait until they are almost ready to come out and make breakthroughs? You must know that although the world has been accelerated, the lifespan of outsiders is difficult to be affected by the creation of the world. Even if it is affected, the speed will be greatly reduced. For example, a person who lives 100 years outside can live 500 years after entering. Tell me, do you want to enter or not? The ape clone returned to his retreat, ready to take a good rest. He himself didn't need to rest. But let the real body rest. The previous battles did not consume the energy of his body, but instead consumed the power of his true body. Now the combat effectiveness of the clones has also improved, and they often fight against the lower level domain lords. It seems very cool, but don't forget the real power. The body has to borrow strength time and time again, and he himself is just a lower level territory lord. Maybe he is not an ordinary lower level territory lord, but no one can withstand such a torment. No matter how strong you are, it will gradually be affected to your core. Therefore, every time the clone is consumed, it will automatically enter a dormant state, allowing the clone to consume less energy. Huh? That over there is. Just when he entered a semi-sleep state, the ape clone keenly felt a unique energy fluctuation. He woke up from his dormant preparation state, his pupils moved, and he flew towards the energy fluctuation. The Nyata area of the trading area is bustling with people. Countless life forms are thriving here, and there are countless caravans and individual merchants who come here with their families to make a living and trade. A figure was suspended in the sky, looking at the floating shadows of busy beings, exclaiming in wonder from time to time. Is this a beautiful view? The voice of the ape clone came from behind him. The other party seemed to have known who was coming behind him, and was completely indifferent, not even turning his head. Isn't the life of mediocre people worth marveling at? Sometimes looking at such scenery can give us a lot of insights and ideas. Don't you even understand this? The ape clone was dull for a while and then continued, you have been watching here for so long, have you gained anything? No, it's probably very difficult to do so. This place is not my chance. Really? Although our trade zone is newly built, it has outstanding people and will definitely develop very well in the future. This is not your place of opportunity. Where else in this world can you have your place of opportunity? The other party finally responded this time. He turned around with a smile and looked at the ape creature coming behind him. This is a faceless creature, and even its limbs are all in pieces, like a person who has been twisted into a twisted shape. The size is not small, and it seems to be about 60 kilometers away from the real body. You are very confident in your rule. If I don't even have confidence in myself, then I don't have to live anymore. Well, I don't have to live anymore, the faceless creature laughed and shook its head. Even so, this is not my place of opportunity. Your galaxy is like this. There are too many confident people, too many, alas. I came here to see if you are different, but now you look like the same person. Your galaxy? The ape's body and mind stirred. Recently, he had seen and fought too many non-galactic beings, so he was not shocked at all by this person's words, but just locked onto his figure again. This time he became a little more serious and said, it's not your place of opportunity, so are you planning to destroy it? The faceless creature waved its hands repeatedly, as if it was frightened. No, no, don't talk nonsense. I am not a murderous person. Killing is the original sin. I would not kill easily, let alone destroying so many people. What a sin! You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3350. The ape clone dug out earwax. He didn't believe that someone with such strength that even he couldn't discern would be a kind person. Who has reached this level of strength, whose hands are not full of evil and stained with blood? Who are you lying to? If you are not an enemy and there is nothing wrong with you, then I can ask you to leave. You really want me to leave? Alas, I had good intentions and conveyed information to you, but I didn't expect you would treat me like this. Forget it, I waited for a long time before you showed up as a clone. There was a lot of rumors in the trade area. It's nothing more than that, I might be trusting someone else with the information I gave you. The faceless creature muttered as it passed by the ape clone. Wait a minute. The voice of the ape clone finally came from behind him. Do you know that I am a clone, and what is the information you mentioned? He could tell at a glance that the ape clone was a clone, and his eyes were quite vicious, and he always felt a little interested in the information the ape clone told him. Of course, whether you believe it or not depends on what the other party says. If I don't tell you, this clone of yours is boring. I won't tell you until your real body comes. He even picked it up. Really? The clone is boring. The ape clone had just broken through a domain lord's rear step and was in a state of great strength. When the other party said this, the formation path suddenly surged on his fist, and he swung it over like a rainbow. Oh, you've gone too far. You're going to do it now. It's so scary. The power of the formation grazed the opponent's body, but the ape clone frowned. Because this move missed, it didn't even scratch the opponent's body. If the faceless creature in front of him was trying his best to dodge, he wouldn't look like this. However, from the perspective of the ape clone, this guy's body was flashing calmly, making his attack miss by 1,000 miles. It shows the opponent's strength. Against the ape clone, it is overwhelming. Very strong. Come again. The spirit of the ape clone is similar to the real body. How many enemies that were originally stronger than him were defeated by his former true form by relying on subspace and evolved beast abilities. This is just a person who looks very cool, he is not afraid. Boom. An earth-shattering thunderous sound burst out in the space. But at the edge of the starry sky 200 kilometers away, it was blocked by a blue circle that suddenly appeared. This is the formation path. A formation developed by Edisha, when deployed, can not only play the current function of narrowing the scope of the battle, but also have the ability to trap the enemy. Of course, the ape clone now simply regards it as a tool to reduce damage to the outside world. What a move! The expression of this faceless creature showed a hint of hunting joy. Tell you to show off again. The ape clone had already felt quite unhappy with his pretense, and now that he was still showing a condescending attitude, he felt even more uncomfortable, and immediately released the more powerful combat skills in his hand. A shadow of a fist, mixed with the bonus of the formation, hit the opponent's chest hard. The opponent was nearly several times larger than the ape clone, and more than twice as tall. He punched and hit the target. There's something about this fist. It turns out that your clone's strength has reached this level. No wonder my subordinates lost to you. The faceless creature still smiled harmlessly, as if ignoring the fist of the ape clone. The ape clone's eyes shrank, and his expression was hard to look at. Because the other party actually ignored this move, he would not be so surprised if the other party used any moves or unique defensive skills. But such disregard of the past shows that his strength is far beyond what the clone can resist. Even the real body dare not say ignore it. The current clone was mixed with a strike from the formation. Where do you come from? He took a few steps back, his expression uncertain. Because the other party's behavior didn't look like he wanted to seek revenge, but he also said that he had defeated the other party's subordinates. I am from a galaxy not far away. A galaxy not far away? This sentence directly made the ape clone feel suffocated. Sure enough, he is not a visitor from the Milky Way, which is not unexpected, but he is talking about a galaxy not far away. This gave the ape clone a not so good idea. Even if some experts come from distant galaxies, they will only be passers-by in this galaxy, but if it is a nearby galaxy, it always gives him a bad association. It turns out that you are a master of the fairy system, and you are far from welcome. The faceless creature seemed to be furious, and snorted coldly, "What fairy system? In the eyes of you Milky Way people, does our Magellanic Galaxy really not exist?" Magellan. Only then did the ape clone suddenly react. Strictly speaking, the large and small Magellanic Clouds and the Milky Way are two major companion galaxies that are very close. There is nothing wrong with treating them as children of the same galaxy. Therefore, the life forms in the Milky Way often they ignored these two major galaxies. But looking back now, with this attitude, it's no wonder that the creatures in the two companion galaxies are unhappy with the life in the Milky Way. Even this faceless creature, whose expression had always been calm, had an overreaction to what the ape clone said. The problem of slow update of new chapters can be solved by, well, why are you playing with such a clone? There is no benefit to winning, and it is embarrassing to lose. The faceless creature reacted, nodded silently, and restrained his momentum. That's right, being angry with someone else's clone? I am afraid that I am a wise man. No matter you win or lose, it's a shame. He had originally planned to come to the galaxy to challenge many masters. Good luck to you. I'll find your true self next time to repay this blunder. The faceless creature regained the air of the old god and stepped into the subspace. Want to leave? Why don't you stay and talk about your Magellan's customs? The ape clone was also very brave, and rushed to the direction of the subspace where the opponent had left, and exhaled the power that was ready to go in one breath. Rumble, rumble. According to the residents of the future trading area, the aftermath of this shock lasted for a long time. Countless people were exploring the cause of this incident, but found nothing. Anyway, the culprit who caused this bizarre incident, the ape clone, became extremely ugly after causing this shock. Because the opponent's departure speed was far faster than what he thought. When he spit out the energy, he had penetrated deep into the subspace and left far away. Even while leaving, he also knew to avoid the subspace explosives that the ape clone had already hooked up and wanted to explode on its own. They also know that this substance may pose a threat to them. Of course, I guess even if I knew it, I wouldn't know the threat level of this substance. The newcomer should be a subspace gifted being. Judging from the speed at which he left, the subspace is no less valuable than the real person. It is really powerful. Are all the existences of the Magellanic Galaxy so terrifying? However, the ape clone also knows that no matter how strong the opponent is, he will not be able to jump around in the galaxy. Otherwise, when they speak, they will not be angry because they have inadvertently ignored the past. It shows that even the faceless creature with a very stable mood has a weird inferiority complex towards the life forms in the galaxy. The Magellanic Cloud? It's really close. It's almost the same galaxy. But what are they doing in our Milky Way? The ape moved unconsciously, thinking of the interceptors he had defeated recently and those he had defeated in Orion's arms a few years ago. The person who defeated the late Territory Lord a few days ago used energy in a very similar way to these two, but the strength was very different. The subordinate the other party mentioned should not be the person who had just entered the late Territory Lord. Bar. Hey, if it's true, these guys and I would already have a grudge. The ape clone was also unfazed, his eyes just flickered. He thought for a while along the direction of the subspace where the other party left, and then he suddenly realized it, and at the same time, his heart became heavy again. Because the direction in which these two people left was actually to the depths of subspace, and their target seemed to be the passage. The passage into the other world. It's just that this passage has been reinforced in a very unique way by various technical research departments in the trade zone for decades. It may not have much resistance to direct attacks by strong people, but it is not resistant to any biological attack. Penetrating from the outside world and possessing extremely strong resistance, it is impossible for them to sneak into the passage from the outside world. Therefore, if these two people want to use the trade zone passage to enter, it is absolutely impossible, and they should be very aware of this. Could it be that these two guys actually have a way to enter the other world from this dimension alone? He was startled. After thinking about it, it seems that this is the only explanation. It is indeed possible. Just now I realized that the other party's subspace ability is unfathomable, and I am afraid it is similar to the real body. Of course, the two sides have different attack directions, so we cannot directly generalize, but at least he has the possibility to enter opportunities in the other world, and these two. They came directly to the trade area, which means they may have been prepared and knew that this place is not far from the other world. Moreover, in the past few decades, the subspace distance between the trade zone and the other world has been greatly shortened. Therefore, it is not impossible for another top subspace master to be able to enter the other world alone. It's just that the area of the inner world they entered, if they don't use the same coordinates of the passage, will be completely different from Xiancheng. If they are slightly staggered, they may not be near Xiancheng. If they go further away, even the imperial continent may not be accurate. Entering, for the time being, will not directly threaten the galaxy chamber of commerce in the other world. Of course, this matter is an emergency, and I have to go to the other world in person to report it. The ape clone only felt that his life was too miserable. These days, I have been recruiting people and fighting against masters. I have fought several games in a row. In the end, I have to break through the passage to enter the other world, and I am exhausted to death. But there is nothing to be done. Who makes himself the clone of a top player? Maybe it's still the strongest clone. Those who are able should work harder. The ape clone ignored the existence of the black god clone and customized itself as the strongest clone. In short, he made a sudden move and entered the subspace, and then used a unique integration method to prevent the passage from resisting him. He quickly flew between the passages. The world is no longer a difficult journey. In these days, not only the real body has improved, but also the clones have used various methods to increase their strength to the theoretical limit. The screen switches back to the other world. In Xiancheng, there is an increasingly weird atmosphere permeating the air recently. In the seemingly peaceful city, chaos and restlessness are spreading. For the general public, although they are not strong people, they are often the ones who can feel the most troubles and reflect them in their actions. Recently, a feeling of tension and chaos has been spreading throughout Xiancheng and beyond, and ordinary people have been affected involuntarily. Chaos also began in advance in the city. Fortunately, these are not major incidents, and many incidents are handled simply by the police dispatching. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3351. Dad, tell me, is something big going to happen recently? I always feel that the atmosphere is weird. On this day, Makiao, who finally had some hindsight, sneaked up in front of the Black God's clone and asked tentatively. The Black God clone touched his daughter's head angrily. What can happen? Don't think about things all day long. Just practice hard for me. Even if something happens, successful cultivation can solve all problems. Humph, I can't. I just realized recently that I was deceived by you. I didn't like practicing. I gradually fell into your trap and turned into a girl who only knows how to practice. I don't like that kind of girl. Life. Then you say, your mother or I died in front of you because you didn't practice hard enough, and you don't even have the ability to take revenge. Are you very annoyed? Bah, Dad, what are you talking about? You are so strong that you won't die. Haha, you are confident in your father and me, but I am not confident in myself. You have never been to the central star field of the Milky Way. There are so many masters there are even those who are far stronger than your father and me. One blow can kill. Do you believe that you can make me turn into ashes? One blow? Wipe to ashes. Mosquito swallowed her saliva. She knew her father's strength best, but it was really hard for her to imagine that there was any existence that could defeat such a terrifying father with one blow. Completely destroyed. Unless it's a god, that's pretty much it. Look, you just don't believe it, right? Forget it, I won't scare you with this matter, but you have to know that there is a mountain higher than the other. It is possible that I will capsize in the gutter one day, and maybe I will too. There will be a day when I need you. Okay, I understand, isn't it just cultivation? I just practice it? Mosquito nodded helplessly. It's hard to take care of your daughter. The black god does his job. Recently, the real body has been engaged in cultivation matters, so the entire work of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has been left to the black god clone. He felt like he had become a real tool. But they are all themselves, how can they be regarded as tools? The truth is this, but it always feels like something is weird. Ape clone? Why is he here? Just when the black god's clone was acting weird, an afterimage came to the scene with special effects of lightning and thunder. Monkey Daddy. Mosquito moved forward affectionately. No matter who is her biological father, she will kiss them all. This is also the relationship that many clones like this biological daughter. Except for the black god clone, which is better, the other daughters, including the real body, are almost close to each other. My good daughter, I haven't seen you for a few days, and you've grown taller again. Bah, I haven't grown a centimeter. Mosquito couldn't laugh or cry. How old was she? And she was still growing taller. However, she was sensible and left after the meeting, leaving space for the two clones to communicate. Unlike the real body, the clone cannot read the other person's memory in an instant, so certain communication is required at certain times to communicate. It's like two people, but with a lot more tacit understanding. You can feel my memory. There were scary guys who came to the trade area before and almost destroyed the trade area. I feel it, it's really scary. How about it? Are these two guys coming to the other world? That's right, that's why I came here specifically to report the news. They are not using a passage, so they should be much slower than me. Do you want to inform the real person? No, the real body is undergoing a very important fusion of formation power. It is difficult to get out for the time being. You can stay here. Maybe you will have to contribute as a last resort. All right. The exchange between the two clones was very brief, and everything was settled quickly. The ape clone stayed behind, and the black god clone continued his work. It seemed like it was back to the days when the ape clone was banned underground and the black god clone took care of his daughter. But compared to back then, my daughter has grown up and doesn't need a black god belt, and can even help out a little. Hey, Father Monkey is here, disrupting Father Hayes' education. I haven't agreed to his practice yet. Now let me read carefully. But miss, you have already promised my lord. Don't worry so much, continue walking slowly, and I will read for a while. The female mini-human was walking in the camp. With her body of only tens of kilometers, she was inconspicuous in the camp, but no one knew that there was a small house on her shoulder, and in the house lived the entire Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, and even the daughter of the top figure in the entire trading area. Jia Makiao loves reading so much. We haven't seen her for a while, and her secret castle is filled with new books. No matter how amazing a person's power is, no matter how fast he reads, he can't keep up with the authors all over the world. New works are born all the time, and even good works are born all the time. In comparison, Jia Mo coincidentally, she read too slowly. During the days when she was out, she had been frantically collecting books, resulting in so many books in the hut that it almost collapsed the house. She flipped through the books, laughing contentedly from time to time. This literary girl's life is so comfortable when no one cares about her. My daughter is also tired. We should let her rest for a while, otherwise it will be counterproductive. The Black God clone was sitting in the office, looking out the window at the walking figure tens of millions of kilometers away. How could he not know that his daughter was slacking off? But you can see through it, but don't tell it. 3 or 4 days have passed. Presumably, the pair of suspicious people have also entered the other world, but they did not show up, which means they did not enter the space near Xiancheng. Black God got up and went to the basement, where the ape clone was sleeping. He has fought several times and wasted a lot of the power of his real body. If he doesn't take a deep sleep to make up for it, the loss of this clone will be too great. I'll go back right now. The ape clone opened its eyes, nodded, opened the subspace and entered the passage without looking back. The communication between the clones is so efficient. The trade area is inseparable from the ape clones. Because of the power of the lower-level domain lords, except for the ape clones, there is no one in the entire trade area who can fight. It is said that there are several masters who have joined, but those masters are either like the 6 beings from the 5 major forces, who just want to get into the inner world, or they are like Senior Haitian, who are unwilling to go out in the inner world. The only person who has been in charge of the trading area for a long time is the ape clone. Of course, there are several nominal collaborators, but they are not the main persons in charge of the trade zone. They are just names and have some interests involved. They are within their own power. We cannot let these people who are not core members come to dominate the trade zone, otherwise the trade zone may fall into the hands of others. Ga. The ape clone had just left, and the eyes of the Black God clone flickered slightly. There was great pressure in the space not far away. This is a sign of subspace tearing. It turns out these 2 guys were playing this chess game. The ape clone has left, which is equivalent to missing a very powerful helper. The other party didn't know what method he used to monitor everything here in the subspace. When the ape clone left without noticing the movement behind him, it suddenly appeared, with a time difference. Daughter. Not good. After feeling the cracked area in space again and again, the Black God clone felt his temples twitching and sweating. The figure disappeared in an instant and entered the subspace. Riding on the pendant, it quickly approached the location of her daughter. Those 2 despicable and shameless men actually tore open space in the area where their daughter Jia Makiao was, trying to capture Jia Makiao. As long as they succeed, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will be passive. Whether it is used to threaten Jia Yan or to show off their force, it is a very valuable approach. Humph, you can succeed. The speed of the Black God clone is fast enough. However, no matter how fast it is not as fast as the opponent's ready movements. Ah! There are enemies. Jia Makiao was considered a strong man with quite keen senses. He immediately felt the subspace around him crack, and then he sensed endless hostility pouring out from within, and he immediately jumped up. Who? The female mini-human was a new mini-human expert that Jia Makiao had recruited when he was the city's ruler. Her strength had reached about the level of a high-level galaxy, and she quickly grasped the axe behind her. But before she had time to pull out the axe, she felt a pain in her chest. A slender arm pierced into his chest. The huge force violently turned her chest, shattering her internal organs into endless pieces. Wow. The female mini-human spat out a mouthful of blood, her eyes blurred for a moment. But he soon regained his clarity. As strong people, even if they suffer enough fatal injuries, they can still hold on for a while. Don't even think about hurting Miss. Her axe continued to chop down quickly. Even if the existence in front of her far exceeds her strength, as a guardian, protecting such an important person, she cannot have the slightest intention of admitting defeat. You know, the entire small human race has received huge benefits because of their friendly relationship with this young lady. If something happens to the young lady under his protection, what will happen to their status as a small human race? She couldn't even imagine it. So in the last moments of her life, she fought for her life. The fall of this axe contained the full strength of a master at the top of the galaxy. But this blow did not hinder the opponent's movements. It just delayed a moment. What a warrior from this other world. When the axe fell, the opponent's arm had to stop, and his fingers popped out, causing the axe to shatter into pieces, turning into pieces flying all over the sky. And the movement of this arm grabbing the house on the shoulder of the female mini-human suddenly became stagnant. Although it was only a moment's delay, it was enough. Ah! Mosquito looked outside how, and when the palm that killed the female guard stretched out towards him again, covering the sky and grabbing the entire house, he couldn't help but scream. She has experienced very few fights in her life, and even if she did, they were all under heavy protection and against beings weaker than herself. Now he is directly facing an unfathomable master. How can he withstand such pressure? His psychology is about to collapse. Just a moment before the arm was about to grab the house, a figure opened the subspace and came to the front of the house. The figure's arms were raised, and the formation above suddenly bloomed with overwhelming brilliance, far exceeding 100 kilometers in an instant, forming an indestructible wall. The pendant in the subspace behind him faintly exudes brilliance, providing magical power, allowing the formation to bring the magic of the subspace, causing part of the opponent's power to fall into the subspace, which is equivalent to allowing the subspace to share part of the pressure. This blow was withstood steadily. Chiao, how unbecoming are you to cry? Don't forget whose daughter you are. Mosquito looked up and his eyes suddenly turned red again. The person standing in front of him is not his father's clone, Black God, but who is it? Dad. Sci-Fi, she. Sci-Fi, she. She sacrificed her life for you and her race, and she deserved her death. Don't feel too uncomfortable. Just treat her family and race well in the future. Well, I will definitely do it. Even though the eyes of the female mini-human had lost their luster, they still used their axes to lean on the ground to prevent the houses on their shoulders from tilting. However, their breath was gone and they could no longer die. Oh! This is another clone. Good guy, that Jia Yan is really terrifying. 2 clones, either one has such strength. Who says otherwise? I can't wait to see him in person. It's a pity that this guy's daughter was not caught. Who said he didn't catch it? Since his clone is here, just kill the clones together and then take away the people. The 2 figures were talking freely in the subspace, seemingly not paying attention to the Black God clone who had arrived. You two, you are talking about the distribution issue after victory. Are you not taking yourself too seriously? The Black God clone was calm and composed, neither angry at the opponent's words nor afraid at the unfathomable depth of the 2 masters. To put it bluntly, he is still a clone. Although he is a relatively unique individual among the clones, he has no fear of death. He didn't want to die, but that didn't mean he wasn't willing to die for his daughter. Could it be that Your Excellency the clone, still thinks you can win? Why don't you hand over your daughter obediently, and we might be able to spare your life? Your clone must have its own psychological activities. It would be a pity to die for the real body. We can spare your life. What else are you thinking about? While the 2 were talking, the figure also walked out of the subspace. Their whole bodies were covered in huge flames, which was obviously caused by being squeezed by extremely deep subspace pressure. Therefore, they are definitely not as calm as they appear on the surface. The subspace of the other world can bring them great harm. And this is the twisted subspace near the passage. If they are in the real subspace outside the inner world, let alone they can move freely in the subspace, maybe extremely serious dangers will occur as long as they enter the subspace, just like when they first came here, just like Jia Yan in the other world. You too, there is no need to say more. If you want to fight, then have a fight. If you don't want to fight, I advise you to leave on your own and don't wait until the time comes. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3352. The Black God clone knew that the person coming was not good. This matter cannot be solved by just talking. It has been slapped on the head, and the other party cannot solve the matter just by saying a misunderstanding. The only way is to try the ingredients of the other party. Two masters who can physically travel through subspace and come to the other world must not be simple characters, but the Black God clone knows that it is invincible, so it is impossible to give up escaping. Is it time for my clone to be dedicated? Kurakama let out a long sigh, distracted, and prepared to protect his daughter at all costs. Although even if this clone dies, the real body can still create a new Black God, but just like the idea of human beings transferring their consciousness into a computer to gain immortality, there is a paradox. Are you still the same person you are now? Maybe what humans transfer to the computer is just a bunch of data codes, and whether the physical body is dead or not has no inheritance meaning. The same is true for his clone. If there is a new Black God, not only will there be a gap in experience and ability, but it will definitely not be his current clone. But what does it matter? After all, he claims to be just a clone. Dad, you can't fight them, run away. Suddenly a figure flew beside him. It was his daughter Mosquito. She looked like she was advancing and retreating together with the Black God clone. Chiao, this is not an easy matter. You go first. If you don't leave, you can't leave, and I don't want to leave you. The Black God clone was speechless for a while. This daughter was brought up by him. Just as he has a unique affection for her, her daughter's feelings for him, the Black God, are also more sincere than his real body. How could she not understand that the clone can be resurrected again with the memory of the real body? But as a literary girl, she couldn't read a lot of books. Among them, there must be philosophical books that discuss whether the person is still the same person after resurrection. She knew better than anyone else that if she lost her father Haishan, even if she saw him exactly the same again in the future, he would definitely no longer be the same person. The eyes of the Black God clone changed. He decided to live a good life, not only for himself, but also for his daughter Mosquito. Puff. Just when the love between father and daughter was deep, an invisible shadow shot quietly from the area where the two masters of the lower realm masters were. It's better not to use this method. I am still the clone of a top master, and I still have the vision. The Black God clone suddenly snorted coldly, grabbed his daughter's shoulders, and pulled her directly into the subspace. Oh! Even the clone can enter the subspace. This clone is probably unusual. The expressions of the two lower realm lords changed slightly. The looming figure in the space was full of brilliance. He knew that the skills used by the other party were very strong, but they were definitely not at the level where they could move freely in the subspace around Xiancheng. Is that ancient thing at work? From the perspective of a newcomer, a pendant that is 100 kilometers long is definitely a behemoth. If they knew that this was just a pendant worn by a giant, they would all be stunned. Of course, even the giant clan back then would definitely have no power to resist when faced with the strength of these two men. Their strength in the inner world is definitely at the crushing level. The shadow fell into the void, and the faceless creature clicked its tongue in wonder. Leave it to me. In this subspace, no one can compare with me unless he comes in person. The looming figure in the subspace suddenly entered the subspace. His body has already experienced a long journey in the subspace, and he still squatted in this camp area for a while, and he still has the ability to move freely. It seems that the Black God's clone's ability to judge him needs to be improved by a small amount. Grade. You're catching up now? What a terrifying subdimensional ability. In the subspace, the Black God clone, which was resisting endless pressure, felt the pressure on its figure increase dramatically. He relied on the power of the pendant to travel freely in the subspace. Now he has a daughter by his side, but compared to the huge size of the pendant, which is hundreds of kilometers away, let alone a daughter the size of an earthling. Even if you come from a city, it won't add much pressure. At this time, the opponent was really chasing behind him. In terms of the speed of action in the subspace, he was not even slightly behind the opponent. Dad, did you just want to fight with them? Mosquito ignored the current critical situation, just looked into the eyes of the Black God clone, and asked extremely solemnly. The Black God clone was speechless for a moment. Tell me, do you want to die? My daughter was about to cry. Well, under those conditions, I can't think of a safer way to let you go. Aren't we leaving now? It's different now. The other party is still pursuing you. If I had stayed just now, I could have bought you enough time to escape. No, you just don't cherish your own life. Promise me that no matter what happens in the future, you won't die easily, okay? Although you are a clone, I grew up with you. Mosquito said something and made the Black God clone sigh softly. Okay, I promise you, but if the real body fails to take action later and I have to, don't blame me. Mosquito was speechless. Just like what the Black God clone said, it seems that they are temporarily free from the opponent's attack, but the pursuit is still going on. If you don't want to die, the best way is to let the Black God clone go to stop the opponent, otherwise the father and daughter individuals must die together. At that time, I will also stay and fight with you. Don't be stupid, you will only be a drag if you stay. Humph, you can't control me anyway. Mosquito showed a little temper that a girl should have today. She is usually a quiet girl, but when it comes to such big matters, she is extremely tough. In fact, the purpose of her saying these words is very simple, that is, to make the Black God clone think about dying as a clone all the time. This has also been Mosquito's nightmare since childhood. Who has seen a father willing to die at every turn? She didn't know that because of these remarks of the Black God clone, she woke up from her dream several times and had nightmares about the Black God clone truly dying and never seeing her again. Now the dream was about to come true, and she was scared. Don't worry, silly boy, I won't let your black daddy die so easily. The Black God clone touched his daughter's little head, treating her like a child as always. Now that he has decided to escape, the Black God clone no longer has the confidence as before, and the speed of escape is accelerated as fast as possible. Huh? That guy doesn't even have the slightest desire to fight? He was quite strong just now, could it be that the little girl played a role? No, this is just a clone, how can it have so much emotion? The looming figure chasing behind him looked a little moved. In Magellan, or not only in Magellan, but also in the Milky Way, the clones of any master are just clones. They don't have that much personality, and they don't have that much sense of autonomy. You may not be able to tell anything within a day or two of communicating with them. But if they communicate a lot, over time, even ordinary people on Earth will be able to discover certain flaws in these clones. The Black God clone in front of me didn't seem to be like this. After all, it was Jia Yan's clone, so he used a lot of brains and put a lot of mental energy into it. Of course, it also has something to do with the Black God clone's own experience. Without a strong sense of autonomy, how can we discipline Yada's creative world? Stop. Just ahead. The pendant soared rapidly, but when the space master behind him approached at an even faster speed, a shadow passed through the subspace and struck hard at this astonishingly powerful master. What the hell? The subspace master was so frightened that he broke into a cold sweat. You must know that this is an unknown subspace deep. Although the subspace is distorted due to its proximity to the Milky Way space, and Xiancheng has become extremely thin, this place is still equivalent to a subspace depth of 13 or 4 degrees. In this place, there is actually matter that can exist here? Can you still attack people? In panic, he almost got killed. He moved his body away in a panic, and the shadow passed by his body, almost taking away a trace of blood. Is it a stone? Can a simple stone have such an effect? His eyes changed, and after a quick look, he suddenly understood. This is no ordinary stone, but a piece of enlightenment. It's just not at the level of ordinary objects of enlightenment in the outside world. It's probably somewhere between ordinary stones and objects of enlightenment, and it can be considered a strange species. This is one of the benefits Jia Yan has gained from operating in the other world these years. There are many objects of second-level enlightenment in this world, and ascetics seem to use these objects less efficiently than the powerful ones in the universe, so the price of such things is not too high. Over the years, he has accumulated a large number of secondary enlightenment objects, not only for his own use, but also for his clones. This object of enlightenment was chosen by the Black God clone. Paired with his pendant and world creation ability, it can be said that they complement each other and greatly increase their combat effectiveness. Good guy, this clone is so strong, then his real body. The subspace chaser's face darkened. In such a gap, the father and daughter who were escaping in front had already opened a large distance. In the extremely deep subspace, it is not that easy to find someone. If the spirit father and daughter escape, he will not be able to find anyone in the twisted space. The other party might even be able to enter the realm of Xiancheng soon. That was unacceptable to him. After entering Xian City, from their current perspective, at least Jia Yan's own fighting power should not be weaker than either of them. Maybe there are other masters in Xian City, so they will not be able to succeed. Don't think that a top player doesn't have geographical advantages. If arranged properly, the combat effectiveness a host can exert on its own territory can sometimes be doubled or even more than doubled. Currently used, it is the most complete and best used app for listening to books. It integrates 4 major speech synthesis engines, over 100 kinds of sounds, and supports offline reading. The junior domain lord reported that there was a powerful shadow behind him, and he had already killed the junior domain lord on the spot. Therefore, he looked down upon the lower-level territory lords of the Milky Way galaxy even more. If the Milky Way galaxy was not the leader of the nearby satellite regions, and the endless benefits and resources were in the central region of the Milky Way, would they, Magellan, have been without any territory lord for so many years? It's true that Magellan doesn't have any master above the territory lord. And this time they came to the other world just to seize the possibility of promotion before the people in the galaxy. The people of the Milky Way have suppressed them for too long. If they want to avenge their shame, they must first cultivate a powerful level above the territory lord. But if they fight for something themselves, their resources are not enough, and their foundation is not enough, so what is the best way? That is to wait until the time is right and grab it directly from the Milky Way. The Milky Way is one of their targets. There are several other aspects, and there are even some that Jia Yan and the others are not aware of, because they have admission tickets and it is absolutely impossible to be like this. Jia Yan and others usually set up chambers of commerce in the other world with great fanfare, let alone sell things from the other world all over the galaxy. It was seeking death, like shouting in a dark forest to attract the enemy's attention. Perhaps it was Jia Yan's high profile that made the hidden masters dare not touch him easily, because everyone in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce looked like they didn't know what was going on, and accidentally found a way to enter the other world, and then wanted to make a fortune there. The power created by the fool of the pen. And this is also the reason why Magellan's people fell in love with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Maybe they can't do it without being noticed, but they covet the existing resources of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. As long as they grab them and transport them back to the Magellanic Galaxy, they can train a large number of experts. If I, Magellan, had a channel, we would have developed a long time ago. How could it be the turn of such a man to waste so much resources? Let's start with this clone first. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3353. Magellan's heart was higher than the sky and his destiny was thinner than paper. The Milky Way is the absolute authority and leader in this starry sky, so people in the Milky Way often forget that there are two satellite galaxies like Magellan. What is even more exaggerated is that there are also a large number of Magellanic life forms within the Magellanic people, who are looking towards the Milky Way. Many of them spent their money and rushed to settle in the Milky Way, and then concealed their Magellanic history, making the Magellanic people look like low-level people. It's like some people on the Earth who look forward to the lighthouse, but in reality they can only live as low-class people. However, they are just middle and low-level Magellanics. The strong and high-level people are very dissatisfied with the status quo, especially the experts. They have always been unconvinced by the experts in the Milky Way. They think that if the Milky Way was not vast and rich in resources, how could there be so many experts? If it were the Magellanics, at the helm of the galaxy, they could do better. Now there is an opportunity. Although the Magellanic Galaxy is in ruins, it has also made great achievements. It has invaded the Milky Way on several occasions. Although it can only capture dozens of cheaper stars at most, and then be beaten back to its hometown by the alliance of forces on the border of the galaxy, it is still true. I really got a lot of good stuff. For example, a certain supergiant force got a good thing called ticket. With the admission tickets obtained, the secret above was also known to the Magellanians, that is, deep in the other world, there is a world called the inner world. The resources of the other world are unimaginably rich, and it is a breeding ground for top masters. Many of the territory lords who have left their names in history in the galaxy all emerged from the disputes in the other world. The only problem in wanting to advance in this world is that you need to compete with ticket holders from other galaxies. There are only so many opportunities. Maybe within one promotion period, there will be less than 10 territory lords who are above the lower level. With more monks and less meat, countless ticket holders will start an extremely bloody battle. Fight. They entered the scene relatively late, and they still took a ride from the trade area. If there weren't people from the Milky Way in front of them, they really wouldn't dare to act recklessly. This can be said to be the most daring and unprecedented action by the people of the entire Magellanic Galaxy in the past million years, aiming to turn the serfs into singing. It's time to hunt him down. The looming subspace master thought of this and let out a deep breath. He was always calm and careful. But it's wrong to be careful now. If the opponent's true form is provoked, there's no telling what the battle will be like. Even a clone is so difficult to deal with. It's hard to say how strong his real body can be. Kill. This person was extremely difficult to deal with when he launched a ruthless attack. He broke through the attack of the stone-like material in an instant, and as soon as his subspace talent was used, a twisted subspace wrapped the stone inside, making it impossible to get out for a while. The clone on the other side quickly approached the Black God clone. Here you go, be careful. Dad needs to concentrate on using his skills. Well, Dad, be careful. Geomakiao knew that his meager strength was worthless on such a battlefield, so he took several steps back on the pendant. Fortunately, the pendant was big enough, and she could retreat all the way to the edge of the 100-kilometer pendant. A clone? It just so happens that a clone fights a clone. I don't believe it. That guy's clone is as strong as me. When the Black God clone saw the opponent's approaching figure, he directly realized that this was just his scattered clone, and his fighting spirit became even higher. The opponent's clone jumped in front of him, hooked one finger, the subspace was chaotic, and large areas of distortion began to produce violent fluctuations. Good guy, you can even stir up the subspace here? Sure enough, the direction of the subspace talent of the real body is different. Think about it, although masters who have reached the level of extremely powerful people have similar talents, they are definitely very different in terms of strength and skill advancement options. Among them, it is difficult to choose one among them. Completely the same. This method. It's called total control. This clone can actually speak, but looking at his eyes, there is no focus at all. He definitely does not have his own soul and wisdom like the Black God. You're in charge. If you hadn't followed the passage to the other world, you wouldn't have been able to reach it. The clone sneered, his eyes sharpened, and he pointed to the space, and a formation suddenly emerged. This formation collided with the opponent's subspace distortion. Miraculously, it was not broken by the opponent's subspace. It is extremely tenacious, producing new changes all the time, completely eliminating the weird abilities of subspace. Huh. The opponent's clone was stunned. Subspace talent is cheating in this world's subspace. Even if his space this time is not very strong in the outside world, what he mobilizes here is all the deep-level subspace, and every move is equivalent to someone else's. He thought he could kill Jia Yan's clone casually with his killing move, but he didn't expect it to turn out badly. Come on. At the same time, in an invisible space, the creative world owned by the Black God was working frantically like a collective carnival. Today's Black God's world has become monolithic, with collectivism rampant. Everyone has the goal of eventually entering the military service under the Black God, because if they enter that step, they can obtain the rewards given by the Black God. Eternal life, of course, this eternal life means eternal life with the Black God. When the Black God lives, they live. When the Black God dies, let alone them, even the entire Black God world has to be buried with him. Nowadays, this group of countless soldiers in the Black God world either uses force, or uses their minds, or some of the array talents are assisting with the array. So it seems that the Black God blocked the power of subspace in a casual way, but it is better to say that the billions of people in the entire Black God world helped the Black God's clone to do this together. The so-called subspace power is nothing more than that. Seeing that he could easily block the opponent's subspace skills, the Black God clone Qiao Qiao let out a sigh of relief. As the clone of a strong man in the subspace, he is naturally very aware of the power of the subspace, but fortunately, he now has the means and is not afraid of such means. That's it? Then let me take another move. The two sides were fighting happily in subspace. However, the clone is stepping on the pendant, and needs to control the pendant's movements at all times, and must also take into account the daughter Mosquito on the pendant, so gradually, the collision of this move is a bit disadvantageous. The strength of this clone is also amazing. The Black God clone felt a gloomy energy gathering. The ape clone might not be defeated here. Oh no, it might be difficult for him to fight in the subspace of the other world. He can't even enter it for such a long time. No matter how good the defense is, it's not built like this. I am silly. The Black God clone had an idea, violently tore open the subspace and flew towards the outside world. Since you can't quarrel with the other party in the inner world, it's better to fight directly in the outside world. You can't use your shortcomings to attack the strengths of others. It was his habitual thinking that harmed him. Mommy's strength is in subspace ability, so he inherited mommy's fighting habits and always likes to fight in subspace. But realistically, when meeting subspace masters, subspace is his shortcoming. So he simply knocked out of the subspace. Hey, I've been waiting for you for a long time. But the outside world is not safe either. In the middle of a mountain forest, a powerful master was already waiting for him. It turned out to be the faceless creature. He thought to himself that there was no subspace talent. Without helpers to help him stabilize in that subspace, he might not be able to withstand it for even a few seconds. He might as well let the other party send him out and follow the battle situation from the outside world. If Jia Yan's clone came out, in subspace, it can be blocked immediately. He actually got caught. Roll. The Black God clone looked not far away. Xiancheng is just a few feet away. For such a small target distance, he didn't want to give up here. Good guy, you are the first one in these years who dares to talk to me like this. The faceless creature still smiled good-naturedly, as if it had never been angry. He raised a palm and was about to slap it down. But in front of his slap, a figure suddenly appeared, raising his palm to resist the opponent's slap. Puff. But his knees still made a sound, as if they couldn't bear the force, and bent slightly. Walk. The eyes of the ape clone turned blood red, and the hair on its body suddenly spread out, like a frightened beast ready to die. He had returned to the passage just now, but through the feedback power of his true body, he realized that the Black God and his daughter in the other world were under attack, so he rushed back immediately, and he actually showed up at an important moment. Oh? It's you again. It seems that I didn't fight your clone last time, so I have to give it a try this time. Didn't you take action against me last time? Why don't you let me go this time? The ape clone joked and took the opportunity to jump back. As for the Black God clone, without saying a word for the first time, he quickly rose into the sky, took the pendant and his daughter, and galloped away. Don't look at it. For the time being, you should continue to fight with me here. The ape clone snorted coldly, punched out, and the fist formation was overwhelming. In an instant, it exploded to hundreds of kilometers in length and width, blocking the faceless man who was about to chase him in place. Anyway, I have my partners to stop the other clone. It depends on whether you can escape. Just in case, if we take in another clone of Jia Yan, maybe the blow to him will be better than the original. Currently used, it is the most complete and best used app for listening to books. It integrates 4 major speech synthesis engines, over 100 kinds of sounds, and supports offline reading. The ape clone was beating and stimulating the opponent with words, causing the faceless creature to secretly become even more angry. Even if they ask him to leave now, he won't leave. After all, killing one of Jia Yan's clones is their established plan, so it is okay to kill the ape clone here. As for the other end, if you can catch up, there's nothing you can do if you can't. If there's another master who can't enter the subspace, he might not be able to catch up, so it's useless. On the other side, just when the ape clone's fight with the opponent was getting intense, the Black God clone took his daughter through the subspace from time to time, and then walked a certain distance before exiting again. You know, the subspace in this area can travel thousands of miles in an instant. But Xiancheng, which seems to be close to Chi-Chi, is actually tens of millions of kilometers away. The gap between the two sides requires many subspace shuttles to close. These distances are enough for the opponent to launch several attacks. Up to now, your true body has not yet appeared. Is it because he was injured? Or is he in retreat? That would be great. After killing you, I will go straight into Xiancheng and take advantage of his illness to kill him, and your true form will come to accompany you soon. Wishful thinking. The Black God clone sneered. He penetrated into the subspace again, causing the subspace talent master who was chasing behind him to miss with one blow. The other party was not in a hurry and hurried slowly. He believed that even if Jia Yan did not enter seclusion, the battle to support the two clones would definitely consume a lot of energy. Plus the energy loss in the process, he might have been half weak. If they don't take the opportunity to take away their lives, it would be their real loss. Buzz. Just before he was about to attack again, a shadow entered his body. The two masters of space merged into one. This pebble of yours is really powerful, so I'll take it. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3354. The live broadcast is so good, I will update it a little bit first, then finish it and send it out in the evening, and then just refresh the original version. The opponent held the magic weapon used by the Black God's clone in his hand. He felt that the magic weapon was wrapped in the subspace and could not move. He no longer listened to the Black God's clone's orders. What a strong method! Regarding the magical weapon, the Black God clone was originally quite confident, but he never expected that the magical weapon could not even intercept the opponent for a moment, and his eyes couldn't help but move. It was completely impossible for him to win this battle. Even the opponent's clone is indeed something, it's more like the first self created by spreading out a small part of the body's power, rather than an ordinary clone. He is on a completely different level from the Black God clone, the ape clone. But even so, he couldn't be captured, so he could still escape. The master of subspace talent combined into one, no longer moved like a hawk catching a chicken, but directly attached the pendant, and struck out with a palm in an instant. The power of the subspace erupted, pulling the pendant into the subspace. The talented master of subspace is naturally the home field of subspace. His palm was still attached to the pendant, but the pendant directly burst out with a burst of formation power. He couldn't bear this power and was knocked away. You can touch my things casually. The Black God clone is as cold as ice. In fact, I was a little anxious inside. Logically speaking, the real body should have sensed his situation a long time ago, otherwise how could the ape clone come about? But the fact that he is so close to him and he hasn't rushed there in person shows that he has really entered a deep state of cultivation. What to do? If you fight, you will definitely not win. There's no way the ape clone can win. These two clones are at a level where they can compete with ordinary domain lords at the lower level, but it is simply unrealistic to fight against masters whose strength exceeds the ordinary domain lords at the lower level. So use your brain. Dad, I have the treasure you gave me here. Mosquito suddenly spoke. At the same time, a necklace-like object is thrown. This is it. You can use it. The person who gave his daughter the treasure was naturally not the clone of the Black God, but his true form. The above contains the power of the real body. It is a passive explosive power treasure. It can save her life at the critical moment from the masters of the domain master level. But that is an automatic effect without a master. If these powers are used in the hands of clones, no clone can even surpass the total power that bursts out in a short period of time. In other words, combined with the power of the Black God clone himself, the total degree of this power increase is directly equivalent to the power of a single blow of the real body. The Black God clone took the necklace, with a hint of sharpness exuding from the corner of his mouth. This is quite rare for the gentle Black God clone. The looming figures of the two masters of the subspace merged, and their strength reached its peak, reaching the level of being considered a strong one among the lower-level domain lords. It's almost over. The giant pendant was pulled into the subspace for a moment. The daughter's necklace was caught in the hand of the Black God's clone. At this moment, he seemed to have become his true form. Surging power surges passionately through the body. Call. He let out a long breath, and an extremely huge giant mosquito appeared behind him. This is. That time the space creature's expression changed wildly. Jia Yan's breath? He had never seen Jia Yan's true form, but he could instantly understand this aura. It must be the true form of the giant mosquito. The live broadcast is so good, I will update it a little bit first, then finish it and send it out in the evening, and then just refresh the original version. The opponent held the magic weapon used by the Black God's clone in his hand. He felt that the magic weapon was wrapped in the subspace and could not move. He no longer listened to the Black God's clone's orders. What a strong method! Regarding magic weapons, the Black God clone is quite confident. Believe it or not, he never expected that the magical weapon could not even intercept the opponent for a moment, and his eyes couldn't help but move. It was completely impossible for him to win this battle. Even the opponent's clone is indeed something. It's more like the first self created by spreading out a small part of the body's power, rather than an ordinary clone. He is on a completely different level from the Black God clone, the ape clone. But even so, he couldn't be captured, so he could still escape. The master of subspace talent combined into one, no longer moved like a hawk catching a chicken, but directly attached the pendant, and struck out with a palm in an instant. The power of the subspace erupted, pulling the pendant into the subspace. The talented master of subspace is naturally the home field of subspace. His palm was still attached to the pendant, but the pendant directly burst out with a burst of formation power. He couldn't bear this power and was knocked away. You can touch my things casually. The Black God clone is as cold as ice. In fact, I was a little anxious inside. Logically speaking, the real body should have sensed his situation a long time ago, otherwise how could the ape clone come about? But the fact that he is so close to him and he hasn't rushed there in person shows that he has really entered a deep state of cultivation. What to do? If you fight, you will definitely not win. There's no way the ape clone can win. These two clones are at a level where they can compete with ordinary domain lords at the lower level, but it is simply unrealistic to fight against masters whose strength exceeds the ordinary domain lords at the lower level. So use your brain. Dad, I have the treasure you gave me here. Mosquito suddenly spoke. At the same time, a necklace-like object is thrown. This is it. You can use it. The person who gave his daughter the treasure was naturally not the clone of the Black God, but his true form. The above contains the power of the real body. It is a passive explosive power treasure. It can save her life at the critical moment from the masters of the domain master level. But that is an automatic effect without a master. If these powers are used in the hands of clones, no clone can even surpass the total power that bursts out in a short period of time. In other words, combined with the power of the Black God clone himself, the total degree of this power increase is directly equivalent to the power of a single blow of the real body. The Black God clone took the necklace, with a hint of sharpness exuding from the corner of his mouth. This is quite rare for the gentle Black God clone. The looming figures of the two masters of the subspace merged, and their strength reached its peak, reaching the level of being considered a strong one among the lower-level domain lords. It's almost over. The giant pendant was pulled into the subspace for a moment. The daughter's necklace was caught in the hand of the Black God's clone. At this moment, he seemed to have become his true form. Surging power surges passionately through the body. Call. He let out a long breath, and an extremely huge giant mosquito appeared behind him. This is. That time the space creature's expression changed wildly. Jia Yan's breath? He had never seen Jia Yan's true form, but he could instantly understand this aura. It must be the true form of the giant mosquito. The live broadcast is so good, I will update it a little bit first, then finish it and send it out in the evening, and then just refresh the original version. The opponent held the magic weapon used by the Black God's clone in his hand. He felt that the magic weapon was wrapped in the subspace and could not move. He no longer listened to the Black God's clone's orders. What a strong method! Regarding the magical weapon, the Black God clone was originally quite confident, but he never expected that the magical weapon could not even intercept the opponent for a moment, and his eyes couldn't help but move. It was completely impossible for him to win this battle. Even the opponent's clone is indeed something, it's more like the first self created by spreading out a small part of the body's power, rather than an ordinary clone. With the Black God's ape clone, the two. There are completely different levels. But even so, he couldn't be captured, so he could still escape. The master of subspace talent combined into one, no longer moved like a hawk catching a chicken, but directly attached the pendant, and struck out with a palm in an instant. The power of the subspace erupted, pulling the pendant into the subspace. The talented master of subspace is naturally the home field of subspace. His palm was still attached to the pendant, but the pendant directly burst out with a burst of formation power. He couldn't bear this power and was knocked away. You can touch my things casually. The Black God clone is as cold as ice. In fact, I was a little anxious inside. Logically speaking, the real body should have sensed his situation a long time ago, otherwise how could the ape clone come about? But the fact that he is so close to him and he hasn't rushed there in person shows that he has really entered a deep state of cultivation. What to do? If you fight, you will definitely not win. There's no way the ape clone can win. These two clones are at a level where they can compete with ordinary domain lords at the lower level, but it is simply unrealistic to fight against masters whose strength exceeds the ordinary domain lords at the lower level. So use your brain. Dad, I have the treasure you gave me here. Mosquito suddenly spoke. At the same time, a necklace-like object is thrown. This is it. You can use it. The person who gave his daughter the treasure was naturally not the clone of the Black God, but his true form. The above contains the power of the real body. It is a passive explosive power treasure. It can save her life at the critical moment from the masters of the domain master level. But that is an automatic effect without a master. If these powers are used in the hands of clones, no clone can even surpass the total power that bursts out in a short period of time. In other words, combined with the power of the Black God clone himself, the total degree of this power increase is directly equivalent to the power of a single blow of the real body. The Black God clone took the necklace, with a hint of sharpness exuding from the corner of his mouth. This is quite rare for the gentle Black God clone. The looming figures of the two masters of the subspace merged, and their strength reached its peak, reaching the level of being considered a strong one among the lower-level domain lords. It's almost over. The giant pendant was pulled into the subspace for a moment. The daughter's necklace was caught in the hand of the Black God's clone. At this moment, he seemed to have become his true form. Surging power surges passionately through the body. Call. He let out a long breath, and an extremely huge giant mosquito appeared behind him. This is. That time the space creature's expression changed wildly. Jia Yan's breath? He had never seen Jia Yan's true form, but he could instantly understand this aura. It must be the true form of the giant mosquito. The live broadcast is so good, I will update it a little bit first, then finish it and send it out in the evening, and then just refresh the original version. The opponent held the magic weapon used by the Black God's clone in his hand. He felt that the magic weapon was wrapped in the subspace and could not move. He no longer listened to the Black God's clone's orders. What a strong method! Regarding the magical weapon, the Black God clone was originally quite confident, but he never expected that the magical weapon could not even intercept the opponent for a moment, and his eyes couldn't help but move. It was completely impossible for him to win this battle. Even the opponent's clone is indeed something, it's more like the first self created by spreading out a small part of the body's power, rather than an ordinary clone. He is on a completely different level from the Black God clone, the ape clone. But even so, he couldn't be captured, so he could still escape. The master of subspace talent combined into one, no longer moved like a hawk catching a chicken, but directly attached the pendant, and struck out with a palm in an instant. The power of the subspace erupted, pulling the pendant into the subspace. A master of subspace talent is naturally a subspace master. Field. His palm was still attached to the pendant, but the pendant directly burst out with a burst of formation power. He couldn't bear this power and was knocked away. You can touch my things casually. The Black God clone is as cold as ice. In fact, I was a little anxious inside. Logically speaking, the real body should have sensed his situation a long time ago, otherwise how could the ape clone come about? But the fact that he is so close to him and he hasn't rushed there in person shows that he has really entered a deep state of cultivation. What to do? If you fight, you will definitely not win. There's no way the ape clone can win. These two clones are at a level where they can compete with ordinary domain lords at the lower level, but it is simply unrealistic to fight against masters whose strength exceeds the ordinary domain lords at the lower level. So use your brain. Dad, I have the treasure you gave me here. Mosquito suddenly spoke. At the same time, a necklace-like object is thrown. This is it. You can use it. The person who gave his daughter the treasure was naturally not the clone of the Black God, but his true form. The above contains the power of the real body. It is a passive explosive power treasure. It can save her life at the critical moment from the masters of the domain master level. But that is an automatic effect without a master. If these powers are used in the hands of clones, no clone can even surpass the total power that bursts out in a short period of time. In other words, combined with the power of the Black God clone himself, the total degree of this power increase is directly equivalent to the power of a single blow of the real body. The Black God clone took the necklace, with a hint of sharpness exuding from the corner of his mouth. This is quite rare for the gentle Black God clone. The looming figures of the two masters of the subspace merged, and their strength reached its peak, reaching the level of being considered a strong one among the lower-level domain lords. It's almost over. The giant pendant was pulled into the subspace for a moment. The daughter's necklace was caught in the hand of the Black God's clone. At this moment, he seemed to have become his true form. Surging power surges passionately through the body. Call. He let out a long breath, and an extremely huge giant mosquito appeared behind him. This is. That time the space creature's expression changed wildly. Jia Yan's breath? He had never seen Jia Yan's true form, but he could instantly understand this aura. It must be the true form of the giant mosquito. Surging power surges passionately through the body. Call. He let out a long breath, and an extremely huge giant mosquito appeared behind him. This is. He had never seen Jia Yan's true form, but he could instantly understand this aura. It must be the true form of the giant mosquito.